Well, I thought we were going to this last time, because it was like 30 something, but we decided we would go small. So it was, yeah. Okay, so I'll forward it. Okay.
I think that was the Walmart. I do not. I do not. I have not. Unusually, I have not had any meetings with her this week. Lee. Usually we seem to end up sitting either in, at least in the Better South Walton meeting. We haven't been meeting a whole lot lately.
No.
What time is it? 5.
Now, Lisa and I from Seascape, we did mention, we used one of the ones that from, we didn't even easement. We went 30 feet where the easement is and started on the property. Okay? We went down 50 feet.
And I reached the conclusion that all my coughing and snorting and such, I think, is allergies, but I will do my best. Cough and snort on either one of you.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
If you see me fall out of my chair backwards, that's I don't need to.
No, everything. Everything this board does has to have 4 votes.
Do you have the code with you?
No, I can go grab it though if you want me to. Want me to go grab it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Karen and I verified everything needs 4 votes. Yeah, Lee is almost always late, but we know the other 2, Tom and Lourdes, are not coming.
Karen, let me know when you're ready to go. Okay, everybody else ready?
Next one.
All right.
And
Hereby call the November 2nd, 2017 meeting of the Design Review Board to order. And we will start off with the agenda. And I believe the first item up will be the past meeting minutes. I was not present at the past meeting, so I will look to those that were to offer comment.
I move to approve.
Okay.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, next item up are announcements. I don't see any on the agenda, but I'll invite the staff to introduce any announcements.
Yeah, good evening. Tim Brown with Planning and Development. It's not an announcement per se, but typically this is where we will move forward with any items that are requesting to be continued. And number 2, Walmart liquor box expansion. The applicant is asking this to be continued to next month's meeting. They're doing an intersection study out there to try to go back to the Planning Commission, get a positive recommendation. So until that happens, this is going to be on the back burner.
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
We take care of that now? Okay.
I move that we continue item 2, the Walmart liquor box expansion.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any comments from the audience? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, next item on the agenda is the Farmers Market Ordinance. And this was continued from the October 5, 2017 meeting.
Good evening. And basically,
what happened last month was we didn't have the full board, but we wanted to have, we had a discussion and with participation from the audience and so forth, so that we could continue moving forward and then present tonight more of a consolidated effort to you. So you would only have a few items to discuss. And so that is what has landed on your plate hot off the press, is the kind of the ordinance that has been pretty much. There are only 4 items for you to look at and see what kind of agreement you can come on or recommendation on those 4 items. Those are in red, starting on page 2, the location, page 3, the operation, or not page 3, C, the operation, D, the signage, and then E, we added tents. What I did was I took from the minutes and the discussion the basic gist of what was being recommended to be put in there. Now, you may need some tweaking on it, but those will be the items that we would be discussing. We did get, right behind the ordinance, I have the minutes highlighted and the important pieces of it for each of those items. So take a look at that. And then we did get submitted a rendering of what one of the signs might look like on a temporary sign. So that is in your package as well. And then also just the what the Exhibit 8 looks like, which is the temporary signage, and from the Land Development Code, Chapter 13, and then behind that, some of the dimensions, additional dimensions. So,
Okay. I guess on Madam Attorney, on this item, would it be okay if before we have a motion for us to invite comment from the public?
Yes.
That are present? Okay. Vivian, would it be okay if we, in your estimation, if we had any public comment on this at this point?
well, I do believe we have one public comment in here.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Hi,
And
folks.
sir, if you could introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, I'm Mark Fearkolb. I am Diane Kolopanis' counterpart for the 38 farmers markets. And I'm here on behalf of all of the markets that we do.
Okay.
And the copy of the rough draft of the sign that we talked about last month, you said the value. So we came up with something simple for 30 Avenue. The sign is black and white. The buildings are black or white with black canopies. We threw the red rooster in there because it's festive. It's farmers market, and we put the time on there. And our goal here is to have the signs temporary, on the day of the event, put up in the morning and taken down immediately following the event, the end of the event. And like Vivian said, with the restrictions and the codes as far as the dimensions, we're looking at right now 4 feet by 6 feet, 24 square feet.
Is this what the temporary sign?
No, there's a big thing that should be sitting in front of you.
I think it's just
By itself with
No,
the
I know,
red.
but is this what it would be on?
Yes, exactly.
And how will that be standing up?
It's going to be, at 30 Avenue, they're actually going to put holes in the ground for us, permanent holes. So when we put the signs in, they'll slide right in. They're going to put some PVC pipe inside so that, it'll always, the ground around it will always stay structured, and the poles will go right inside. And it's going to be made out of wood. And, of course, we're going to store them and keep them from being weathered. And, we want to make it classy. We're not going to trash it up. No way.
You going to cover those holes when you're not using them?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Yes, we will. Absolutely. And they're going to be like that.
Okay.
But yes, absolutely. Otherwise, water will get in there and they'll cave. So
Did you
I
have
like the
more
sign.
comments on what we added from the discussion last week.
As far as Seascape?
No, as far as the items in red where we added some language, location. I guess we could maybe go one by one on those.
Okay, you mean as far as location of the signs?
No, this is the location of the markets.
Okay.
And
Okay, well, right now we're set at 30 Avenue, correct?
Well, yeah, basically that was until this becomes an ordinance, then you would be abiding by the ordinance.
Okay, I understand. Okay, right now at 30 Avenue, we are currently doing our markets on Thursdays, 52 weeks a year. And the market goes from 9 a.m. till 1 in the afternoon. And we are just north of the fountain at 30 Avenue, if you're familiar with that, picturing that. And we are right at about 90, somewhere between 90 and 100 feet from the easement. And because of the aesthetics and the way that is designed, that little center, they have that little circle with the lawn, they would prefer that's where we do our market. And, we feel the same way. We've been doing it since April. And, we have the fountain between us and the road and another 30 or 40 feet, if not more. So, with that in mind, it's not a setback of 400 feet, but it's also, what we discussed last month was maybe looking at each and every location on an individual basis, what's best for the development itself, the market, the aesthetics, bring everything into play. So,
On the 30 Avenue location you're talking about, have you had any safety issues at all?
None
based
whatsoever.
on where it's at?
None whatsoever.
Okay.
And when you're coming in off of Highway 98, whether you're coming you're east or west, they have those little turn-in roads, like the turn-in lanes,
Right.
and you can't possibly turn in there unless you're slowed down to 10 miles an hour, if not less.
Right.
And there's also like a shoulder there where you do turn in. So even though I think the speed limit out there on 98 is 55, right through the traffic light of where 38 is, which to me that's always been high in my opinion. Same thing within Destin. Some of the roads are 45 and 55, and when we have tourists here, it's dangerous.
It's hard to go 55 with all our tourists.
Well, that's very true, but just with that being said, but yeah, I see no safety issues whatsoever from oncoming traffic or east or west.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think what I did was try to massage the language from the discussion of last month in previous meetings that you would be able to, we went with the 150 foot, that it would need to be set back at least that amount, but then we had the question about the parking lots. So we mentioned site plan review, and I figured maybe we could just incorporate it that way, that anything that, that site plan approval will be required by the design review board for requests that are closer than 150 feet from the scenic corridor / FDOT right-of-way, or to utilize parking lots that front the scenic corridor as a location for all or part of the farmer's market. That would give you the opportunity to review site plans that either use the parking lot or are less than 150 feet from the corridor. So I'm still, we're open for
Vivian,
suggestions or tweaking.
I'm
on
sorry,
that.
I was gonna ask, so is it 150 feet from the scenic corridor boundary or the FDOT right?
Well, the FDOT right away.
Okay. Might wanna take, I don't know.
Take out the
It's
scenic corridor.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would, yeah.
Vivian, I have a question, and forgive me if I'm a little slow on the uptake here. In the items that I printed off the agenda on the website, there's an ordinance that's a red line document.
Yeah.
It's 3 pages.
Yeah. I basically incorporated accepted some of the changes that we had discussed regarding the procedures and going through the,
Is this, the one you gave out tonight is the most recent version, right, Vivian?
yes.
Oh, so it's sitting in a
Yes.
place. Okay. All right.
Yes.
That takes care of me. Thank you.
Yes. I try to simplify that, what you had previously into this
I know.
document.
Good. Okay. I'm sorry. I'll send it.
This is the old one. This is the tonight's. Most
Farmers markets. There we go. Okay. All right. Good. That takes care of me. This looks like it's the more pages now. Good. Okay. I'm caught up.
Yeah, this was an attempt to simplify it for you.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Should I talk about Seascape?
Great. So it's so far in the discussion, just to make sure we're headed towards a actionable item. We have one change that, Sydney, I think you captured.
Right, just remove scenic corridor under B2, so it reads closer than 150 feet from the
Focus B2.
FDOT right of way. I'll probably just
Okay,
spell
so
out
strike-
right of way.
Strike from the scenic corridor.
No,
Or-
cross,
Or just
Just
Scenic
scenic
corridor,
scenic corridor,
because it's
okay.
from the FDOT.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Scenic corridor. All right. Okay. Do we have any other items, Vivian, that you'd like to present, or
Oh,
the applicant would
yeah,
like
I
to
thought
present?
maybe
Go.
we
Okay.
could
Keep
do
going.
one.
Yep. Okay.
Take it one by one, and did you have any other comments on this particular?
As far as the distance from, yes, as far as Seascape. What we'd like to do is open a new market at Seascape Resort. And this was also discussed last month. And since the last meeting, we have measured it off. And we actually went about anywhere from 30 to 40 feet north of the right-of-way, and then started our measurements in the new development where Acme Oyster is and everything else. And we used one of the rollers that, you just calculates your distance. And we marked it off at 100 feet, 125, and 150. And that still put us inside, it's in the parking lot, but it's still only utilized less than half of the parking lot where the islands are set. And I'm gonna have Seascape, revise their drawing of that, and then put the markings on where we measured. So if we were to go back 125 feet or 150 feet from where their property line starts, and it's not with the right-of-way, we are still have more than half of the parking lot for the retail shops. And once again, it's a temporary event, 1 day a week for 4 hours. And the way we could set our market up is, facing the scenic corridor, we have the ability to stretch our tents all straight down, going east to west without making them square or setting up over here and over here. And there's over 200 feet of space for us to set our tents up. So it's going to look very, aesthetically, it's going to look very nice. You come driving down Highway 98, you see a farmer's market, and all the tents are white, and they're all set up next to each other, straight down the line.
And they're okay with you taking up that much of their
Oh,
parking lot?
they want this market really bad, and I do too. I mean, I actually live on the property, and they came to me 2 years ago because they were familiar with me and the markets and asked me if I would consider, putting a market there.
Right.
So that's where we are now. And our goal is to open it up in January when, most of the snowbirds start arriving here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, since it's a new market, and then run right into spring and Easter and then summertime, and we'll have it established by the time, our tourists get here.
What day of the week are you looking at?
Right now we're looking at either a Tuesday or a Wednesday because we already have a market on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
We have markets on Saturdays and we have markets on Sundays. And we kind of doing this for years now.
Mm-hmm.
We figured if we did it on a Friday, most people come in Saturday to Saturday. So people tend not to buy as much on a Friday. They're trying to get rid of the rest of the food that they had because they're checking out the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
So we figured midweek would be the best time for, people to want to buy our products.
So let me go back through the distance thing. You said you started 30 to 40 feet from the right of way.
Yes. there's, okay, go ahead.
So, sure. So when you say we're looking at 125 and 150 feet back, that was not including that 30 feet? Or-
Not at all, no.
Okay, so that was in addition to, and
In
you said
addition.
you could still fit the market in?
Absolutely.
So you'd basically be at the south edge of the parking lot with the market-ish,
We would be more in the
or the middle?
middle, yes, if we were 150 feet back. 100 feet back, we would be more towards the south part.
But Vivian, the way this is written now, that would still require a deviation because
Pardon?
they wouldn't be in an event or common area. It would be in a parking lot
I don't know if it would be a deviation, or
or
just.
site approval.
Yes.
Require
design
site approval.
board, Design review board, site approval.
So we're just talking about it right now as an example
Yes.
of an area where
Yes,
it would require site approval.
yes.
Can we go back a little bit? Who came up with the rooster?
Diane, our market director.
Okay. As a, I don't know. Does the rooster really fit in South Walton? You know, I guess that's kind of the question I'm asking. Only because it may. I'm thinking it may give an image that you actually gonna be selling poultry, you know, in cages or, you know. I'm
That's funny,
you
that's
know,
true, I get it.
And because people passing by are going to be thinking, you know, I can buy a live chicken, you know, versus I can buy. And I guess I'm just kind of saying that the sign should represent more of what you're going to be selling versus a rooster. That's just my opinion.
We have the
Definitely
pig,
not a
did you see
pig.
the pig? As soon as I saw that, I said, no, let's not do the pig.
But I guess the animal.
Politically incorrect.
The animal part is what I have a problem with because it looks more. If anybody's been on Highway 90 going toward Marianna or something like that, passing through one of the cities, you don't really know. You wouldn't read this. You glance at the.
Okay. I mean, it's a good point.
Yeah, whatever it is, and you're thinking, oh, I can go in here and get or I can go buy a chicken.
I mean, we could come up with a design like, how they always make that big, like, fruit thing for Thanksgiving that you see
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah,
And we could put, like a big basket that has tomatoes and peaches.
Yeah, that
and,
represents more of what
farmer's
you're going to
market,
be
yeah,
selling
Absolutely.
than something you won't be selling. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it gives it kind
Absolutely.
of a bad,
I agree.
you know.
I guess this design, we came up with it because farmers get up early in the morning, the rooster crows, that kind of thing, But I don't disagree with you.
That's something that they would be required to bring back the sign
temperature, yeah,
for your
okay.
approval.
Right.
But this is kind of
What I was
an
just
example.
wondering, because I didn't know if this was like just a mock-up or
It is.
just a starting place.
It is a start. It's just a start. We haven't physically began building the sign yet.
Okay.
This is just what we're submitting to you guys for approval. Like I said, we didn't want to put a whole bunch of stuff on it because it's going to be on the site, and people will see it from the road. And once they see it, they'll know, hey, look, there's a farmer's market there.
Exactly.
Now it's just, to me, it's just a formality for what the picture of the sign is going to be once we get the approval of the signage.
Okay.
Vivian, was it your goal to have it be that if something was not in an event or common area, that it would only need site plan approval from the DRB?
Or if it was less than 150 feet, yes. Otherwise, it would
The
be
way
reviewed by the outdoor event.
The way I read the B that says location, it sounds to me like it's saying that they're only permitted in the commercial centers of the development projects that contain an event or common areas. Not that they, and then if it's closer than 150 feet, that's where you would have the site plan approval.
By
It
the
sounds like
DRB.
the first one is a deviation as opposed to just getting site plan approval.
No, there was the permitting process is spelled out under permit requirements. And they would be permitted they wouldn't go through the design review board unless they fall under number 2. Then
Okay,
they
so
would,
where it says, or to utilize parking lots that front the scenic corridor as a location, that would need site plan approval as
Yes.
well. But that doesn't conflict with what it says in one.
I guess, Vivian, was your goal that only the farmers markets would only be allowed in areas where there is a event or common area? So like.
yes, kind of to
I
limit.
guess is
So
the
not on
parking lot
vacant
considered a
lots.
common area?
Well, that's why I defined
Parking
down
lot.
below further
Okay.
that
So if it was
the
in a green
parking area
space-
could be considered common
Yeah.
area, but this was saying that if the desire is for them to be in a parking lot, they would need the site plan approval by the design review board.
Yeah, so an example of something, if they were 150 feet or more in a green space, they could be permitted by right.
Right.
If not, they have to.
As long as it's a commercial center.
Right.
Yeah, okay,
It
yeah,
was-
yeah, okay, understood, yep.
It was limiting that to
But,
the centers, so.
So is everybody okay with the fact that
Yeah.
that's how it reads?
I like it.
Anybody, any tweaks?
So we're
or
striking from the
anything?
scenic corridor.
Works the job.
All right, next item.
Okay.
The scenic corridor.
Page 3, under C operation, there was discussion about the operation, how many days per week, and in the minutes, it was discussed, there was more discussion on it than just 2 days per week. That was one suggestion. There was also suggestions about whether it be once a week and then maybe twice a week during holidays, or let's see,
Memorial Day through Labor Day, kind of.
yeah, I remember that was
Yeah.
discussed as well. So it's kind of just nailing it down to, do you want to do it 1 day per week and then have special exceptions, or just 1 day a week, or 2 days a week per location?
You know, from my perspective, the challenge here is not so much the 30A farmers markets as it is the potential for something less professional to crop up. And, you know, sometimes I'm inclined to say, well, let's have relatively loose criteria and then see how it goes. In this case, I think a year or something of loose criteria where you allowed more than 2 days a week, you could end up with other people taking advantage of this new aspect of the Chapter 13, and we could start having things that amount to flea markets masquerading as farmers markets popping up. So don't take us as picking on y'all.
Not at all.
But I think probably the attitude here would be better. Let's try 2 days a week, see how it goes. If it's not a problem, then maybe it proves itself and we can expand the language. But I'd be very nervous. I've said this before at meetings, how all the years and years of hard work on the part of volunteers and staff, all the effort that folks that have complied with all the rules and regulations of the scenic corridor, all that stuff, you know, this may sound dramatic, but I mean, it can be jeopardized by
Sure.
suddenly cracking the code wide open. So
Sure.
I support the 2 days a week, the way it is drafted in the document before us.
I do too.
Now, remember the 30A is not under this, 30A was separated out, and that is just.
Oh, yeah, no, and I'm sorry, I was making reference to the name of the
38
farmer's market.
farmers
Yeah,
markets.
it's known as the 38 farmers market.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
those will go through the outdoor event permitting.
Yeah.
The ones on 98 will
Okay,
have the special guidelines.
okay. Good, everyone's good with that? Okay, next item?
D, signage, and just added from the discussion last time, with design with design board approval, 1 temporary sign as described in Exhibit 8, which you do have a copy of in the back, of Chapter 13 shall be allowed for each 400 feet of scenic corridor highway frontage or portion thereof in the parcel. And I took that language directly from the, because we had discussion about how many signs could be there. And so I blended the temporary sign language with the language from Chapter 13 for how many ground signs you can have. So that
Did you
was my
also
thought.
blend the exhibit? Is the size the
This-
same
Yes.
as the existing for sale or lease temporary sign?
Yes.
So, under this scenario in D, am I reading it correctly? Let's say that a large, commercial center has 3 monument signs. Or 2. Some have 3. And could they have signage on their monuments? Wait, it says the main monument sign. So does that mean any monument sign if they have multiple monument signs, or is there a technical term that says there's one that's the main monument sign?
That's a question that if Tim has been listening,
Yeah.
might be able to answer.
As far as utilization of the reader board, at those individual monument signs, a development is allowed, 1 every 400 feet of scenic corridor frontage. While the development may order those in some manner, the county does not.
Okay, so
So yes.
is
they
this
could.
main monument sign language technically, does it technically apply is what the first thing I'm asking.
So would an alternate be on a monument sign? Or should we have,
Well, I'm asking
Up
is
to
the
one
intent
monument
one
sign?
monument sign or all monument signs? That would be a question right there. Let's answer that. That's the
what I
easiest
thought.
way to look at it.
Okay, then I'm not.
So what is the intent of staff on this?
I wasn't really thinking of multiple signs.
Okay, so let's talk about, because we do have some with multiple
Yes.
monument signs. So if it's all monument signs, then you could have the, 2 or 3 farmers market todays, and then if you've got more than 400 feet, you could have 2 more temporary signs out there. So you can have 4 or 5 easily signs in front of a thing that says it's the farmer's market, which is great for the farmer's market. But I'm just thinking from a sign proliferation perspective. Now, the monument signs are already there, clearly. So I'm just thinking of the overall end
Yeah.
result.
I can't really think of, other than Seascape, Grand Boulevard, 30 Avenue, had a hard time coming up with any other locations that would qualify as having an event venue area, commercial center event venue.
But if they can get an exception by coming to the board to put it in a parking lot.
Well, the sign's not gonna go in the parking lot.
No, I'm saying though, you could end up, we do have some commercial strip centers that have multiple monument signs, but don't have an event space. So then we could potentially be looking at applications for strip centers that don't have a common event space, but they want to do it in the parking lot.
Like the Center of Retail Therapy is in.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one.
Yeah.
That's a good example.
Well, then you might want to go back to location on page 2 under B, location, and further, just make, under 1, make a further verbiage to limit it to those locations that we were specifically thinking about, being the Grand Boulevards, 30 Avenues.
Not to interject, but I mean, we'd
Please
have
do.
to have a valid basis for
That's
limiting
what-
it just to those.
Could I
Well, those types, with those types of, where they have, common areas, fountains and,
Could I make a suggestion? We're only going to have one farmer's market at each development. We're proposing to allow a temporary sign that's the same size as temporary signs that are approved for other purposes in the scenic corridor, which is a 4x8 sign, which is a fairly large sign for the scenic corridor compared to temporary signs typically in other locations. Why not have one temporary sign available. You've got one farmer's market. It could be located near the entrance to the parking lot where you're going to access the farmer's market. It would reduce the clutter on the scenic corridor, or
That's
the
kind of where I
potential
was-
for clutter.
So he's just
Tending
saying
to-
one sign.
To gravitate to. And they could, if they have monument signs and they're allowed to put it on the monument sign, they could have more than just their one, but the one temporary sign, I'm thinking, you know, might be good.
One is better than none.
And one big one's
Yeah.
better than one small one.
So how do we accomplish Mac's recommendation?
Wait,
Just
You
by
just take out
eliminating the,
Of the each
Just
400, each 400 feet.
Okay.
yeah, just with design board approval, one temporary sign is described in Exhibit 8 of Chapter 11.
Shall be
Will
allowed.
Shall be
Shall
allowed.
be allowed.
Period.
Yes, period.
Strike the rest of the sentence.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right.
That simplifies things.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
One more item?
Last one's, I think, gonna be the easiest one.
I hope.
Oh, now.
Don't assume.
We're gonna have white tents with red roosters on.
Better than a red pig.
Rooster pig, rooster pig.
That keeps it.
And of a uniform size.
Sounds good.
so-
And that's my question. What is uniform size?
Yeah.
So what if you get people you get 5 people participating and they say, oh, uniform size, and
Oh, our tents?
we haven't spelled out what uniform.
Most of them are.
They're 10 by 10.
Okay, so do we need to put in 10 by
put in 10
10
by
specifically?
Now, we do, and this is just, an isolated incident. We do have a gentleman that has a business that he sells meats and beef. He has an orange tent. He's called the Caveman, and he's at Rosemary, and his tent is 12 by 12. So,
But Rosemary's
He's
not.
orange.
right. But if he comes to our market, then he's going to have a white 10 by 10. Okay, that's not a problem.
That everybody at a particular market would have to have a tent that's the same size.
Exactly. Well, they all are 10
Yeah.
by 10. Yeah.
So we could.
And we have no problem.
10 or 12 by 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have no problem enforcing that with our vendors. They'll all be white, they'll all be 10 by 10, they'll all be uniform. Plus, they set up next to each other really well when they're all the same size.
And would this technically still allow, if a vendor needs a bigger space, they could have 2 10 by 10?
That's what they do. That's what they do.
It seems like it would still allow that, which I think is probably good. I don't want vendors to have to.
No, we do have a couple
squeeze
vendors
down
that
their-
have 2 tents because of the amount of product that they bring,
Yeah,
Okay.
especially the farmers.
So are we going to modify the
yes.
item 1?
I want more farmers, so.
Okay.
No
So do
longer
we.
than 10 by 10.
Yeah, I just wanted to see something specific in there, because they could say uniform and everybody shows up with an 8 by 8 or
Absolutely,
whatever. So I mean,
absolutely.
just something more specific.
I don't think that's a terrible idea, actually.
Okay.
Just put in 10 by 10.
Just put 10 by 10 size in there.
That's, that's,
Put it in
Okay.
there.
that's what I've been using since day one. And
Shall be white and 10 by 10 in size?
yeah, we all get them from Sam's Club. They're easy ups. They're called easy ups. They're very sturdy. They do well in the weather. So
Okay.
So,
Madam Attorney, you capture that one?
yes.
Excellent.
So if we're done with the discussion, I could formulate a motion based on what we've already.
I have one more quick question, if you don't mind. Okay, since we're going to revise the sign, the graphics for the sign, we're going to get started on that like tomorrow morning. Do we have to wait till next month for another meeting to submit the new graphics of the sign, or can we?
Well, there's sort of good news and bad news there. The ordinance isn't going to go into effect for some time.
Right.
it's
So-
just, this is
This
the
still
first
gotta
stop.
go to a
Okay.
planning commission and the board of
Okay.
county commissioners with 2 hearings. So we
Yeah.
got 3 more at a minimum.
It is scheduled already for planning commission next week,
Okay.
and then it'll be scheduled for the first BCC
December.
December.
Does it need 1 or 2 BCC?
2.
But I mean, this particular market sign doesn't need to be approved as part of the amendment to the ordinance, does it?
No,
Okay.
no,
Yeah.
but he's
He
worried about it.
wants to
I think
use
he
the
wants to get
sign
started in
as soon as
January, so.
possible.
I want to try to get Seascape open in January, but I want to get the signs in place at 30 Avenue as soon
Okay,
as
so
we
you're trying to
possibly can.
anticipate what the ordinance is going to allow.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Well, I don't,
the way it's written today, though, there, am I understanding correctly? There is no restriction on what's on the sign. And this,
No,
we're all-
that would be
That's
design
what-
review board approval.
so we,
But he currently can't put up
Not
one
for
of
the
these
temporary
temporary
sign.
signs until you guys.
but I mean,
But-
and just because the planners in the room are know to be sensitive, I don't think that we're really going to be able to regulate the content of a sign
That's
that
what
should be
I'm getting
roosters or
at.
pigs.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, just to put it bluntly, that's illegal.
that's
Right.
what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
So
so-
I think we're going down a path that we can't go down.
Okay.
But we're, definitely wide open for the recommendations, and, like Kevin had, he had a good point.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
Oh, no, understood, and it's
Yeah.
great, it's great advice, and this board from time to time dispenses magic pearls of wisdom, I think, but regulating whether or not roosters can be on your sign, I'm pretty confident is not
can't.
something that would
Okay.
be defensible on the.
We can't do that.
Well, we're here to please. Remember, we're supposed to wow you. So,
Yeah, all I can say is that you would have to just be ready to go for approval as soon as the ordinance passes.
so what would be
BCC.
the soonest amount of time if everything goes, according to hopes, so to speak? Could it be January?
Well,
It's a staff question.
The deadline for the January meeting would be before the county commission meeting in December.
Wait. If it goes to the first BCC meeting in December, why
Yes.
couldn't it just go to the second BCC meeting in
The-
December?
It could, but I think
Typically-
Tim's saying the deadline for this board, the submittal for this would be before the board adopted.
Oh,
Well-
you're talking about to get Seascape approved specifically?
Yeah.
Right.
The BCC typically doesn't want anything on their second December meeting, because we would have it scheduled for the first December meeting, but because of the holidays, they typically only do basically consent agenda.
And actually, there's a bigger problem than that this time, because we will on Tuesday approve moving the December 26th meeting to December 19th. That will allow only 7 days between the two readings, and we have to have 10 to comply with state law.
So January for adoption
And then it would have to come back to us.
in February.
Yeah, it'd be the first week in February for your site plan approval and signage.
For everything, even for 30 Avenue signage?
Yes.
But I think you're in the same boat. The deadline for the DRB is gonna be
30 Avenue,
after
yeah.
the first meeting in January for the county commission.
But is there not and maybe I got to get a grasp of the effect of adopting this ordinance is decreasing existing restrictions that opens the window for this type of stuff to happen. Have I said that? Have I described that accurately?
Right, because
Yes.
currently they're not allowed.
They're not allowed. So could they come to the design review board in any capacity and be granted a variance for the month of January?
Can't get a variance for something that's prohibited.
You can't, okay.
That's why we're here.
But why would this impact, why would 30 Avenue signage have to come back to this board?
If they want a temporary sign.
Well, well, hang on a second. This is where we're beginning to blend the name of the organization
Right.
with the location. I believe
The organization name is 30A Farmers Markets, but we
Yes.
do a farmers market at 30 Avenue.
Yeah.
It just happens, to
Yeah.
sound the same.
it's the same organization. So my reference earlier to 30A Farmers Market was not to a farmers market on 30A. It was to a
Yeah,
corporate entity.
I
Yeah.
know, but what somebody just said, I thought that you would have to come back to us to get your signage approved for the 30 Avenue
A
market.
temporary sign.
Yes.
Why?
Because it's currently
Under
prohibited.
signage.
No, it will be approved by them, won't it? Once the ordinance is approved, why can't they just do it, just like a person that puts a property up for sale can put their temporary for sale sign out there?
I think the Seascape one is the one that,
Well,
But we're
Well, we
talking-
want to get the 30
Seascape's
Avenue.
different.
Yeah, we want to get the 30 Avenue sign up like yesterday. And because we're already in operation. And we're on the corridor and we're losing a lot of business for that.
Can go ahead once the ordinance is approved, is what my point is, with their signage. Why not? We don't have to approve every single farmer's market sign.
That's correct.
Well,
Well,
you
that's-
do
that's-
for under D2.
That's the
every
way it's worded,
temporary
because I think that was one of the things you were concerned
Wait.
about.
They could put it up on the monument though.
Well-
Monument sign.
So,
Well,
No, it
Max's
does
answer to my
say
question
that.
has
It does
satisfied
say
me
that.
that there's nothing we can do before January.
right.
Yep, so,
We have to approve the temporary, but not the monument.
but we don't have the tools
See,
to
we're not-
approve anything until January. Yep.
We're not putting any signs on the monuments.
Legally on a sign that already has the size, the color, it's white, right? Is
Yes,
that in here?
yes, it's white.
Well, but I'm talking about, I know you're planning on white, but I'm
Okay.
talking about in our ordinance language.
Yeah,
The exhibit,
But Lee, the reason I asked the question is this board is not permitted to grant a variance to something that's prohibited in the code.
well, look, I'm talking about 30 Avenue only. What he needs to move forward with as soon as he can is the sign, the temporary sign. So the shape and size and color of the sign is regulated through the code itself.
Yes.
So why would these temporary signs come back to the design review board for approval when we can't regulate sign content? Because the only thing that's not regulated right here in the code is the content on the sign. Mac, what am I missing? What would we be considering?
I'm not sure that we would really need to bring these signs back
That's where I'm
unless
'Cause
y'all
what can we
specifically
consider?
want to see them.
But what can we consider for approval?
We're considering we already have the shape defined in the code approved.
Right.
Well, it's conceivable
if this is
someone
a
could
simple
propose
farmer-
something that
if it
was
says farmer's
incompatible
market
with the
today,
architecture of the
I'm not
development
sure
it's located
that-
in.
No, because it's gotta be white. There's very specific, did you see the exhibit?
Well, it has to be white, but
We've
there's
already defined
no,
the size, and that's
Right.
approved, and this board has recommended that and approved it in years past.
So here's the
Um,
exhibit. It shows everything as far as look. It's highly regulated. They'll all look exactly the same as far as the post, the color, the size. It's just-
Also,
Right, the only thing is content.
And we
the-
can't regulate content.
well, it
But
does
the
say white
color of the
background, it is
the-
white background with painted copy. So.
yeah, but I mean,
think-
I thought that was the intent, like, as an example, these would be the colors, I know this is a different, well, this is actually the sign, whether it had a rooster on it or not, for 30 Avenue, because that's compatible with the colors at 30 Avenue.
Exactly.
But at Seascape, it might be a different group of colors.
It could be pastel, it could be whatever, but that's.
And that would be the content, that would be the part of the sign that we would
Yeah,
consider.
I think there was some concern in the discussion previously
It's
about,
supposed to be white.
about the signage and in wanting it to, make sure that it fits in with the,
That's like I said, we
Design
purposely did
itself.
those colors because the buildings out there are black and, they're white with the black
I mean, do I think
canopies.
it's predictable that we would probably approve these colors at 30 Avenue? Sure. Would I be nervous if I were them about making an investment in a sign that has to be approved after it's made?
Right.
I mean,
I mean, there are about
That's
a
up to
thousand
you
of
to
these.
decide.
On
Sorry to
temporary
belabor
signs.
this point, but I just don't want something in the code that really doesn't work. Because is it requiring a white background?
yes.
I'm having trouble reading the verbiage on this exhibit.
I know
It's
you are.
tiny and
It's-
blurry.
I know. There
So
is no
it
better
looks like
copy
it-
of it.
It
So,
looks, yeah, I know, that's why I'm asking.
Yes.
So is it requiring a white background?
Yes, white
So-
background with painted copy.
So then, the only thing, my understanding is legally, the only thing then we could even legally regulate is the color of the copy.
Probably, yeah.
Can I make a suggestion? Let's not get into the content aspect of this. We already have regulations related to temporary signs. They're supposed to be in the format and constructed according to Exhibit 8, which is what we provided. Colors are to match scenic quarter standards. That's already defined. One temporary sign per property is allowed. That answers our earlier question. And if it's over 6 square feet, it requires permitting through code enforcement, which is our normal process for temporary signs in the scenic corridor, or the US 98 scenic corridor, and actually throughout the county. Would it possibly be a better idea if we minimize the requirement for the sign and just relied on what we already have in place? As far as because we're not talking about content, we're talking about what it looks like. And we've already defined what a temporary sign should look like.
Yeah,
And they're all supposed
There's no
to,
reason why they should be treated differently than any other temporary sign.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And we don't regulate copy color on signs anywhere else.
Colors to match scenic quarter standards. That's what it says. If it meets the color charts that this board has approved, then we're going to issue a temporary sign
I
under the
just don't
existing
want to make people
regulations.
come to us for approval on a temporary sign if we can't change anything
No,
about
that's
it.
fine.
I would
only
agree
wrote
that I
in-
think that's
that-
unnecessary.
Yeah, I would only put that in there because there was discussion
No,
about
I get,
reviewing it. We can definitely just change it to, under number 1 at the period, monument sign, and 1 temporary sign described in Exhibit 8 of Chapter 13, period.
great.
Okay,
Just-
so the-
Vivian, just so you know, when we had that discussion about being concerned and wanting to approve the signs, I don't think we were talking conceptually at that point about the design of the sign being so heavily, that it's same as the temporary signs elsewhere on the corridor. If that were the case and they could make the sign look like whatever they wanted to architecturally and all that, then
Right.
I'd want to see them. But
Okay,
it's regulated.
so just to make sure we've constructed section D signage properly, is the intent under 1, signage is allowed only on an approved reader board on a monument sign. 2,
or 1.
and is it 1 addition or okay, signage?
And
Is the
1
word
temporary
only a
sign.
problem? Signage is allowed, should it just say signage is allowed on an approved reader board on a monument sign? And 2, 1 temporary sign as described in Exhibit 8 of Chapter 13 shall be allowed. They may
Yes.
use one or both of those.
So take out the only.
Yeah, I think the word only is a problem because it kind of makes number 2
That's
not,
likely to change
Yeah, that's true. It
Mhm.
precludes number 2.
yep.
soon.
Reader board, okay.
All right, we good? I'm sorry.
Well,
I just
I'm
didn't want
I'm going to wait for
Brilliant.
Madam Attorney to agree that we've constructed that well.
I think so. So signage is allowed on an approved reader board on a monument sign, period. And then 2 would read, 1 temporary sign is described in Exhibit 8 of Chapter 13 shall be allowed.
I think that works.
Or you could just put "and"
Mm-hmm.
1 temporary sign is described and take out 2 altogether.
Either way.
I'll let you guys figure that part out.
Okay.
Okay.
Could I suggest adding the word existing in front of monument sign?
Sure.
So
Thank
there's
you.
no
Yes.
ambiguity about whether or not they can construct a new sign.
Thank you, Mac.
I like it.
Don't want to let the horse out of the barn or the rooster or
Or the
whatever it
rooster or the
happens to
pig.
be, yep.
So does this mean we can go ahead and get our sign made and put it up?
No.
You have to talk to staff about that.
Okay.
You can have it ready for as soon as it's approved by the Board of County Commissioners. You would not need to bring it back to Design Review Board.
Okay.
However, you would still have to bring back your site plan for the seascape
Absolutely, absolutely.
before that could open, so.
Okay.
Okay, I have a new goal in life, and that's to get through this item before 6 o'clock, so we can get on the next item. So we've covered, I believe, all of the topics following the draft redlined ordinance. Staff, do you have any other comments regarding this item? Okay, any members of the board have any other comments or questions regarding this item? Any member of the audience, other than the applicant, have any?
Dead.
I'm sorry, you're not the applicant. You are a helpful member of the public, so
He's
yes,
the
sir. Do you have any other?
I do not.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, in that case, I think we've covered all the input. Do we have a motion? And
Do you want me to
Madam
try
Attorney,
to-
yeah, if you would like
Okay.
to read it.
So, just a suggestion, if somebody wants to make this motion. So it would be under, to approve the draft as presented with the following changes. Under B2, remove scenic corridor. D1 would now read, signage is allowed on an approved reader board on an existing monument sign. D2 would now read, 1 temporary sign as described in Exhibit 8 of Chapter 13 shall be allowed. And then E1 would now read, tent shall be white and be 10 by 10 in size, 10 feet by 10 feet in size. So there.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you all, sir.
Thank you very much, guys.
you.
See y'all next
Good
month.
luck.
For your
Long time
patience and
coming.
everything.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you, same to you.
Okay, the record should reflect that Ms. Moore participated in that item, and just, I think you were absent for the first two, or first one?
Yes.
Yep,
What
so,
was it?
the minutes, and then we continued the Walmart liquor box item at their request. Okay, that brings us to item number 3, O'Donnell Professional Building Deviation.
And I'm just going to make a quick announcement before we move on to any of these other items for the applicants that might be here. So under the Walton County Land Development Code, in order to have a project approved by this board, you'd have to have either a deviation or other project, you'd have to have 4 concurring votes. We only have 5 members here tonight. So if you would like to go forward tonight, you can, but just be aware of the fact that you would need 4 affirmative votes for your item to be passed.
Thank you. Tim?
Thank you. This item was continued from last month's meeting due to the fact that we only had 4 members and they needed all 4 votes. This is a request for deviation to keep the existing monument sign. The monument sign that was installed was not the monument sign that was approved. When they initially submitted the monument sign, we came to this board and I indicated that it was not in compliance, it was too big. So they handed out a revised sign graphic which was in compliance, and that's what was approved. However, the first one that was not in compliance was what was installed on the site. They're asking for a deviation to leave the HVAC equipment on the roof unscreened. When this project came for approval, initial approval, their architectural drawings showed that the HVAC equipment was going to be screened. It was not going to be open and visible from the road. But the final building, it is not and was not screened. And they're also asking for a deviation to allow bamboo, existing bamboo, at the building entrance. That bamboo was installed after the fact. It was not on their approved landscape plan. It's not an approved plant in the scenic corridor. It was installed after the fact. I don't know if it was after they got their final CO and their final sign-off. I don't know. I just know that it's not on their approved site plan. I should say landscape plan. So they're asking for those 3 deviations as part of this request, and I'll take any questions the board may have.
How much bigger is the sign than is permitted?
I was afraid you were going to ask that because I forgot to sit down and check that. Because I've got, what's in your package? I can hand out what was approved. I brought it with me, but I don't have the dimensions to give you the breakdown between what the code allows and what was installed. But it exceeds the 28 square feet of copy area. The approved sign, what's in your packet, shows 6 changeable copies under the main heading there. If I'm not mistaken, the approved sign had 4. So, it's the bottom part that was too much. So the overall sign size is okay. It doesn't exceed 80 square feet, but it exceeds the 28 square feet allowed for copy area. But how much? I'm sorry, I don't know.
So to bring it in compliance, they would have to reduce the changeable copy area,
Yes, which they have actually
or copy area, period.
They've actually done. I worked with Tina, the applicant, to bring the sign into compliance. She provided a graphic which I signed off on that said this is now in compliance, and it's not. They wouldn't have to remove the entire sign. They would just have to take that bottom part off. But they haven't installed it. I signed it as approved, put it up, and you'll be good to go. But that hasn't happened.
And so they're asking that they not have to do that?
Yes, they want to keep the existing sign.
And Madam Attorney, would these need to be continued or considered one at a time, as separate
That'd
items?
probably
Or
be the
all-
best way to handle it.
Okay.
And this is the only existing new building that we're aware of on the scenic corridor where the HVAC equipment is exposed. There are a couple older buildings, but this is the only new building that we're aware of.
Is there a reason why they don't feel that it can be closed?
Whenever you're ready for us to speak, we'll
Okay.
clarify what's being misinterpreted.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready to hear from the applicant? Okay. Please introduce yourselves for the record.
Tina Robertson.
Tina's the property manager. I'm Mike O'Donnell. My wife and I built the building, and we've got our architect to comment about some stuff. If you would like, we can start with the rooftop equipment.
Certainly, you can present all the items if you're comfortable, and we'll
Okay.
probably consider them one at a time, but you can go ahead and present them all.
Sure. We're not asking for the rooftop equipment to remain visible. Yeah. You want?
Let me just interject here because Tim said it's correct. Excuse me. My name is Steve Piazza Design Architects, and I was working with everybody and the scenic card. We got all our approvals and stuff prior to, and Tim was involved with that. Yes, we do have screens. Yes, the problem was we have a screen that's basically it's a wall that comes up 40 inches at the front wall. The equipment is set back 20 feet. Angle is supposed to be cleared. The AC equipment guy came in and instead of putting a 12-inch rack that you put the equipment on, he put a 30-inch rack. So it picked the equipment up. What we see is 8 inches of the top of the unit and the funnel, air funnel piece on top. So we've talked about that and they've decided on that a few times. But we're trying to come up with something that would work, and one of the items that I had presented to Tim that was possible was to put, there again we're talking about distance and eye shot from the road. I don't care whether I can see it from Walmart parking lot. You can't see it from Donut Hole or anything right there, but on the highway you can.
Why wouldn't you care about seeing it from the Walmart parking lot?
Because I can see their equipment where we are and it doesn't matter to them. So really, if I'm on the roof looking at theirs.
If you're on the roof of your building?
Yes.
Yeah, but
if I'm correct, okay? If I'm
okay,
correct,
sir, it's our job to interpret the code. It's
Okay.
your job to present your request.
then I gotta ask our attorney's opinion. Where is the equipment supposed to be visible from? Or
Well,
not
our
visible?
attorney's sitting right here.
Yeah, that's.
So
They're
I'll
the
ask.
planners.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, not ours. The county attorney.
That's me.
That's her.
that's
Oh, I'm
her.
sorry.
Okay.
The old county attorney.
That's the planners.
Okay.
That's the attorney.
yeah.
This guy.
Which
Planners.
Okay.
Planners.
That's what I was talking about.
And-
Basically, it was
And my point of my
It's my-
comment, sir. The point of my comment is that you may not care what is seen from the Walmart parking lot, but we do.
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
But the rule goes is according to the road.
The rule goes is according to what we interpret the rule to be. So again, please make your presentation, and we'll deal with it. I'm just, the
Okay, but-
tone of your presentation, your opening remarks
no,
appeared to be to
I'm-
refute some incorrect information
No,
that
that's
the
not
staff
to refute
person.
the information. Is to clarify why it's visible now and it wasn't in accordance with plans and what they approved. That's
Okay.
why we have the deviation.
I'll
Okay.
continue on. Thank you. So just to clarify, we did not intend for our air conditioners to be visible. There's a few variables that led to that. We built or designed, Steve designed a wall that's part of the architecture of the building to conceal the air conditioners. Well, unfortunately, when the installers put it in, they put it on this tall stand, and then the other guys came in and they installed it, and then when we noticed, it's too late. So-
Understood. Okay, that's
My
a
job is to
fantastic explanation
pay
of
for it.
how this came to be. Understood.
Right.
Okay.
So that's where we're at now. And another thing, we spent way more money getting super high efficient units. And these super high efficient units that are all brand new to our area, thinking we're doing the right thing, they come with this little round thing on the top for exhaust.
Okay.
We didn't know it was gonna have that, so they went being taller than we thought. But we moved on. We got our CO, everything's fine, and then a year or so later, there's some problem with the visibility. So we said, okay, we'll do our best to conceal it. We know it needed to be. We didn't want to put a lattice work, obnoxious looking thing in front of the air conditioner. We want to do something nice. So you want to proceed with this part? Because Tina, we had a whole thing where we met with everybody to get this approved and spent more money. And
Yeah, we met on site with Tim and with Anna from Code Compliance and with Blonde from the Development Office, and we discussed putting planter beds on the rooftop where we would have a native plant that would grow up and would conceal the equipment. So again, it would be softscape. It wouldn't be just a lot more metal up there looking at metal from the highway. If I may, you don't have this in your package, but if you're not familiar with our roof, can I give this to them?
Yes,
or
ma'am.
how do I do that? That's the wall. That's standing on the roof. So we have a 4-foot wall.
For Karen.
What we propose to do is put trough-type planter beds on the white membrane of the roof that are about 2 feet tall, so you wouldn't see them from the road because the wall is 4 feet tall. And then we would have the native plant growing out from that planter bed that would then hide the rooftop equipment. You wouldn't have any issues with anything falling off the roof or, concerns about wind or anything of that nature because they would be situated behind that 4-foot parapet wall. So that's our proposal, not to leave them unscreened, but to allow us to do the screening that we had discussed on site. And we were told that it was okay when we were on site. We started moving in that direction.
we got our contractor. We started buying the material to do it all. 6 weeks later, then we get a letter saying, hey, that's not going to be approved. You need to come in front of this board.
Right.
So we're like, well, wait, we're told we're allowed. We've already started buying everything. And they said, no, you can't do it.
That's a
And
different
I hate
group.
to throw a wrench into this, but that's not, we don't have that specific request before us tonight for the planter boxes. And I think what you would have to do, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, is probably amend the DO to get those approved. Because it may not necessarily be a deviation.
Well, I think when this project came to us, the elevations did not show any rooftop equipment, and it's very likely that because it was originally designed not to be visible from the elevation views. I certainly understand the change in methodology for their subcontractor installing that equipment there. It doesn't relieve the requirement to screen any rooftop equipment from view. But that's how we got to where we are.
Yeah. I think they're saying they would like to have some sort of landscaping be there.
Well,
it's
and
been
we
mandated
actually
that-
presented that, and we received an email from the county that said the DRB did not approve our request for softscape screening.
Well, they could consider it, but that's not what's before us tonight.
So do we need to ask then that it's accepted the way it is? And if it's not, then we come back and request a softscape?
That's a possibility, if you would
Yeah, I
like
mean,
to request that.
For whatever it's worth, the way that I'm understanding the request is that we just waive any requirement to
That is the
to
request.
screen
So
them.
just so you know, the request that was advertised was a deviation to leave the HVAC equipment on the roof unscreened.
I'm not well versed in the whole process here. I'm trying to say, hey, we're willing to screen it.
Yeah.
We're trying to do something that doesn't look obnoxious. We headed down that path with a verbal, yes, you can do this after a meeting, and then we were stopped. So
Well, I think it's
I
probably
like
a yes, you
it
could do
the
this
way
if the
it
board
looks now.
approved it.
I don't really notice the air conditioners, but
Mac, would that be a deviation or would that be amending the DO approval?
Well, I think that this would be something that we could approve at staff level if they presented something that met the requirements of the scenic corridor without having this board having to actually grant a deviation for materials or something like that. I mean, typically screening of equipment is something that we deal with through code enforcement, and we make a determination as to the opacity of the screen, the effectiveness of the screen. It's got to be something that won't blow off the roof.
Right.
Because we're in a
And
160 mile an hour wind zone.
In all, I guess full disclosure, I discussed this particular aspect with Tim, and at the time, I believe the request was to have more bamboo, which would not be allowed unless this
We
board.
didn't ask for,
Okay,
there's a lot of things that are being thrown out that aren't real accurate.
okay.
Okay. Okay, well, that's part of the reason you're here to make your presentation. So, but, again, try to, and I didn't mean to offend Mr. Piazza, but,
No, it's-
my intention is that y'all make a presentation, y'all don't tell us how to interpret the code. That's
Absolutely.
kind of why we're here.
So help me understand, where do I need to go from here?
Okay, well,
Attorney, with this, or
Well, so your request tonight is just to have no screening. Do you want to go forward with that request, or would you rather present a proposal to?
Well,
Yeah, well, if we could, Madam Attorney, if you could describe, and I know I do this on occasion, is I want to make sure that we don't deny a request and cause them to go back to square
Right.
one. I know that it probably has to be re-advertised, but if we can
Right.
keep their application and stuff in play, that'd be ideal from
Then
our
can
perspective.
can
I
the
think.
board go ahead and look at the exhibits that were part of the application?
No, we can't do that tonight, but what we could do is, so you have 3 deviation requests. The second one is regarding the HVAC equipment.
Mhm.
We could continue just that deviation request tonight to give you time
But part of our
to-
deviation application, there were pictures that we provided from the right of
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Oh, we have.
Can
Yeah,
y'all
we
look
have
at
those.
those?
Yeah, absolutely,
We have,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Then I guess the best thing to do is.
what I'm gonna ask that we do, because I gotta move on.
Okay.
We'll get closure, we'll get a yes or a no. If you'll look at these pictures, and this is in front of the building, you have them in your packets. If you find the air conditioners to be very visible and offensive, then tell us we can't leave it the way it is, and we'll come back at a later date, and we'll do what we need to do to figure out how we need to screen it. So, do you have any more questions about that?
Okay.
This topic?
Yeah. I believe that's what we're seeing. There is an Exhibit F titled Photo Taken Standing on Middle of Highway 98 Median. It appears that we may be seeing it to the east of the center of the building. It
That's
appears
right.
that we see what
Those are
looks
the
like.
units, those are the
You're seeing the
exhaust,
flumes.
the exhaust
Yeah, the
things I
exhaust
was
ones,
talking
yeah.
about. And the reason it has those is because these are super efficient units.
Understood. No, and yeah,
Yeah.
and your explanation of how this all happened is
Yeah, it's like-
great,
I mean,
and that makes a
there's-
difference. We know you didn't willfully
Right.
just
Yeah.
ignore it. Understood.
What I think
Okay.
Steve was trying to say earlier is what we read in the code book is the rule, I think, is that the furthest away the rule needs to apply to isn't it the median? Or is it, we mentioned something about the Walmart parking lot, obviously the further.
Let's just read it.
Yeah, I think this, I don't know if this is an entire section of the code here. Let's see.
Is it the median? Is it the north side of the road? The right of way
I
on
think
our
Matt's
side?
looking for it.
It's the right of way on our side? Okay.
This is just the pieces being
Matt, do
amended.
you have that code?
Depending on how far back you go,
Yeah.
once you get to the median, then you can start to see the stacks. So like if you're in front of our building, because Steve was trying to explain with the wall we built, it was supposed to shield
Oh,
it.
and
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Steve did a great job explaining that up to the point that he told us that we don't need to worry about what's going on the other side of the road, and that's where I took a little bit of a. We were starting to head down a direction that wasn't
We didn't go. I
wasn't
get it.
appealing to me. Yeah.
Yeah, the intent of the code is that it's screened from view. I mean, not from outer space, but from,
Right.
Right.
Reasonable perspectives along the corridor. And I guess are we getting the language?
I think Mac's going to get it. I'm trying to find it on my
Great.
phone.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we probably have the presentation that we need from y'all. Y'all pointed out the photographs. So as soon as we have the language that and I think it's important to capture it in the discussion that on what basis we're going to proceed. But I think we've covered that item.
Okay.
So maybe we can move to the next item, and I may not have counted properly, but I think there were 3.
The bamboo.
Yes.
Yes, so the 3, if you would like to, whichever, the sign or the bamboo, you're welcome to.
Well, let's just do the sign.
Okay, so the sign was originally installed with non-removable panels. We were told that the copy had to be removable panels, so we went back in and we changed that and we put in removable panels. There are not 6 panels on our current sign. There's a photo with the application that shows our current sign. There are not 6 panels on our current sign. There's 4. And our copy is 14 square feet.
Well, there's 2
You mean
different.
they're not 6 that have print on them?
Correct.
I'm looking
There-
at 6 panels. It's just that only 4 of them have print on them currently.
Correct, and that's all the print that's ever going to be on there. We stopped doing anything because they weren't movable to begin with. So we were told they had to be removable. So we went in and we changed the sign and we put them in as removable. Then we were told they weren't right again, we needed a deviation. So we just stopped doing anything because we kept spending more money to change the sign. So if we needed to go in and remove these 2 channels and this leasing panel and just put it back to flat panel, we certainly could, but there's no copy on that currently, nor is there anything planned. Our building is 100% leased.
We didn't know how many tenants we were gonna have, quite frankly, and that's why there's spots for it. But
Right.
the way it leased out, this is our final sign, so.
Yes.
I think removing those 2 extra panels would accomplish the goal
I think
here.
that'd be great,
We want
yeah.
to be simple and quick.
And we're at 14 square feet with the 4, the Great Florida Smiles, Emerald Coast, Pratt, Aycock, and Hinckley. We're at 14 square feet.
So,
And the for leasing information, please.
That
Yeah.
can go away.
so
Okay.
Tim, if I could direct this question to you, is the consideration that the 2 empty panels, if they were filled, that it would no longer meet?
Yes,
Okay, so if those,
because we don't know if they're gonna be filled or not. I mean, they're telling us they're not, and I believe them, but we don't know if they're gonna be filled or not. What if they sell the building and the next owner decides, hey, I can use this on my sign? Well,
yeah, understood. Okay, so I think the solution that the applicant has proposed is viable. If they
Oh.
remove
Take it off.
take them off and,
Come into compliance and everything's great.
Do you need the rendering that shows that without those 2 removable panels?
I can see it.
yeah, I think that's, has that been entered into the record?
Well, I've
Does that
actually
work,
already
Tim?
approved this. I mean, here's
Oh.
the letter I wrote approving it. It just hasn't been installed.
Okay.
Okay, so just
Okay, so, and this can be a confusing process with the whole deviation thing. So, if you all are satisfied with that solution, and staff has now stated on record that it's already been approved, then interpret properly. If we were to choose to deny the request, it's not to deny you an option. It seems that you've got a viable option on the table that you're happy with.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so do we need any other discussion? Any comment from the audience? Okay, are we ready to make a motion and dispose of the
Well,
sign
have-
item?
They haven't talked about all 3 yet.
No, but we talked about them doing the deviations one at a time because they may go different directions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. So I think we're ready, if the board is ready for a motion.
I will make a motion to deny the request as is, which the request was to leave it as is.
The sign.
The sign.
Right, the sign
We're just
as
talking
is.
about the sign.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the sign as is, to deny that request.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Well, can I make a motion that we approve this version?
I believe staff has already approved
Okay.
it.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
okay, all right, then that's.
So, okay,
Staff just needs to follow up.
all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, good, we got rid of one of them. And you're happy?
And you're
All
happy,
right,
that's great.
yes, good, okay, so we can move on, staff.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, when was that option approved? I mean, or by you, date-wise?
April 11th.
Okay, so do we need to have some kind of follow-up? Is that possible?
Staff will handle it.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And
Okay,
I was
and-
able to find the language, if you guys wanted to go back to HVAC, or we should
Sure.
move on to the.
Yeah,
building.
and Mac is back too, so. Mac, would you like to,
Yes, the language is in chapter 13, page 14 of 66, and this is section 13.03.01, subsection 13, utilities.
No, I'm looking for
All electric, cable TV, and telephone feeds from public rights-of-way to buildings must be underground. All air conditioning units, transformers, backflow preventers, or other utility devices must be screened from public view. No satellite dishes, air conditioning units, or other extraneous equipment shall be visible from a public right-of-way.
So screen from public view and not visible from a public right-of-way.
Right.
Okay, so,
That's your applicable.
So in essence, you could stand on the right of way over by Walmart and see it.
If you could, that would violate
That's correct.
this provision, yes.
or sitting at the intersection on the opposite side of the
Yeah.
road, so. We've got a photograph where they are visible from the center line of the right of way, so I'd say that it's probably pretty obvious that they are visible from the north side of the right of way. Okay, do we have enough information to take action on this item? Fellow members of the board. Okay, in that case, do we, I guess if we get a motion in play, then I'll take any last public input on it.
I would move that we deny them being permitted to leave the units unscreened.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, motion and seconded. Do we have any further comment from the public?
Are we the public?
I believe you would be considered the public. Yes.
Okay. So where do we go from here? Because do we come back to you guys for the planting deviation, or is that considered a deviation, or because
That's something we'd have to see the actual plan to make that determination, right, Mac? To know if it'd be approved by staff or by the DRB.
I think if they propose screening material that would be consistent with the design that's already approved, that's something that we could approve at staff level under your previous approval of the aesthetics of the development. It's likely it's going to require a building permit for attachment to the roof, so it will withstand the 160 mile an hour wind load requirement. I think we could approve it simply in writing without having a permit for that kind of thing. Since there's an existing code violation for this, we would like to help them with the remedy as soon as possible. And this is probably the quickest way to get there. If they'd like to propose something that's inconsistent with what you've already approved, I would suggest that they come back and actually ask for that approval. And they may have other means of screening that they like considered. But if it's something that that we normally see and that we've approved on other buildings, we'd be happy to approve that without an application, so that they could apply for the building permit if one is required and satisfy the code violation.
Great. Does anybody on this board disagree with what staff just said? Great. Okay. So if the record needs to reflect we all agreed, it can.
Did we have a vote yet on the motion?
Not yet.
More public comment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that brings us to the bamboo.
And the story of the bamboo is that this building has an architecture that's kind of Asian influence. My wife is Vietnamese. And if you notice the little flare in the building, that was part of the look we were after. And I always planned on the bamboo being there. We put it in before we got our CO. It's always been there. I think it matches the building, it fits with it, and everyone loves it. I didn't know that it wasn't on your list of approved planting materials, but that was brought to our attention, and we're asking for a deviation to leave it because it looks really nice.
Can I ask staff a question, please? Tim or Mac, Tim? Their CO or their application when they were building it, was the bamboo on there or?
We believe it was there when the development order inspector inspected for development order compliance. He obviously did not look at the bamboo because it is not on the approved landscape plan that this board approved. But it was not noted as a deviation from the approved plan by the development order inspector when he signed off on the completion of development order.
And there were 7 other COs issued for that property We're fully CO'd.
Now, the additional COs issued on that property would have been issued on the building itself and not on anything outside of the building, other than the utility connections at the building itself. Those would have been done by the building department, and they would have been built based on the building plans, not the landscaping plan.
We
The
worked
development
all
order
that.
inspector inspected the landscape plan and did not note this as deviating from that plan.
But the point, part of the point is that this was not on a plan that was approved through the approval process by this board, subsequent board.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but this is something, were this board to grant this deviation, number one, it doesn't set a precedent for any other project. We usually, somebody reads that language, Mac, I think you got it memorized.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And I'll share, Rosemary Beach is a relatively highly regulated place, and we have on occasion allowed plants not on the plant list with the understanding that they have to be entirely contained by either a planter box, pavement, something, so that aesthetically they are separate, entirely separate from all the other landscaping around them, and that it is unlikely that the plant, if it were to be an invasive exotic or something like that, would spread to the natural vegetation and end up spreading through the town and have unintended consequences. So I'm going to offer that, in my mind, we should consider this. And I certainly respect the opinions of fellow members of the board, and there are enough votes that I could be the lone in favor, and this would still be denied. So I'm just going to share my opinion is that in this particular case, I think the applicant makes a good argument that it is supportive of the architecture of the building, and because it appears to be wholly contained by pavement. In my mind, this is something that I think it's not an unreasonable deviation request. But my ears are open to the.
It's also a
opinions.
non-invasive species of bamboo. You mentioned that.
Yeah. Thank you.
My concern would be if you want to put planters on to disguise the air conditioning, that you're going to be more plants up there along with those large plants.
The plants we'll be happy to show you a picture. It's actually, they're all over Rosemary and Ellis Beach. This is all we're talking about doing. Somebody told us we were going to put 20-foot bamboo, but this is what we had in mind.
Have you received a quote for that yet?
Yeah, it's expensive, but it's trying to make. Do you know how much it cost me to put that curb on the top of that roof?
I can imagine it's expensive, yeah. But that horsetail is what that's
My
called.
architect told me, "Are you crazy?" And I was like, "We want to make it look right."
Yeah,
So-
understood. Yeah.
Well, we'll leave that to staff.
Yeah, that's a separable discussion. So I guess the future of the bamboo.
And I do actually like having the greenery there that softens the building.
It does.
Architecture of the building.
I know we don't set precedents, but putting in landscaping that is different from the plan is not a great thing. So as long as we're not setting a precedent, that people can just do that later and come back and get a deviation.
Well, I understand the plan is up for maybe being adjusted or changed because, the prior landscaping, bamboo is allowed. I don't know if you guys are aware of that.
I think
The
we're taking
prior
that.
list of approved material included heavenly bamboo, which looks very much like this. And so if that was planted and it was approved, it would be on the scenic corridor.
But see, even the way this board works is even if it's on the approved list, we still approve everything. Like, people could use a combination of colors that are, each individual color is approved, but if the combination doesn't work, this board has the purview to say that doesn't work.
Sure.
That's why we have
This may have been one of the first meetings when I came on to the DRB, and there was a lot of discussion about this building. The colors, I believe the building may have taken more than one meeting to get through because of the discussion on color and things like that. So, you know, I think the building is an unusual building in the scenic corridor, so.
And I gotta tell you too, I'm not just biased because I own it, but I can't tell you every single day, we've been there almost 2 years, every patient that comes in there just about says, thank you so much for making an investment like this in our area. It's the nicest building on Highway 98. And even Dr. Burden came to me and said, Mike, I thought I had the coolest building. So, point being, I think the whole ensemble works here.
And I'm not passing judgment on how it looks. I'm talking about the concept of doing something that wasn't approved to plan and then coming back and getting approval for it after the fact. It's just.
Yeah, that was my mistake. I didn't know that there was a process like that, and our original plan showed 2 palm trees, and I'm like, it looks so much better if we had green going up the building and then bamboo. So I made the executive decision to buy it and put it in, only to find out there's a rule that I broke.
That's where the whole thing came off the rails.
Yeah.
So who actually did your landscape design?
Well, this property actually had a site plan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Who actually did your land? I know there's a landscape designer that actually does it.
Yeah, I guess it would have been our
It's Brad Davis, registered
Okay.
landscape architect.
So
practices
I guess my question would be, Fred probably knew the requirements for the landscape, right?
This is the plan.
Okay.
This is the approved plan.
Okay, so the approved plan has 2 palm trees.
No, sir, it does not have any palm trees adjacent to the front of the building.
So,
No, what's unique here is we bought a piece of property that went into foreclosure, and there was a development order already with a site plan and all that, and we used some of the materials that already went through there, and I worked with my architect and our builder to work within the footprint of the restaurant or whatever building was supposed to go there. So because we had all this landscaping material that was all done, that's where little discrepancy came in. We utilized what we purchased with the property, and it was not my exact plan.
could I see the original design, please? And I'm kind of floating with my other board member here. Is it's a beautiful building. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't go well when you have a rule in place or a set of rules in place, and you come in, put kind of this person, whoever he is, I guarantee he's certified by the state of Florida, that whole 9 yards, so he knows how to read. And he designed it a certain way for a certain reason, and then you decide to make executive decisions and just ignore the rules. I mean, that's my concern as well. And, okay, hold on a minute, let me get my parking lot there. Okay. So actually so there aren't any palm trees on here either? On the original design?
Where are those? Find that legend. That's the sand live oak.
Myrtle, palmetto, holly,
this is
grass,
98?
grass.
Where's 98?
I think that's 98.
Wait, here's 98.
Oh,
So yeah,
Yeah,
the
so that's the
palms actually weren't on the plan either.
So there were already existing palm trees on when you bought the property?
No, what I was explaining is that there was a plan that apparently went through the whole development process. I mean, this is the first property we've ever built, so I don't know all of the rules. But when our landscaper came in and he put together a bid for me, I told him what I wanted, and it deviated from what you have in front of you, because I didn't know that where there was a plan I was supposed to follow. I did what I thought would look
I
right.
think you did a beautiful job.
Thank you.
So this is not, there's more than just the bamboo that's not according to the landscape plan.
Right.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, if I could respond to Lee's comments about development order inspection and her concern that there might be some precedent setting or that we're setting up a path that allows someone to deviate from the approved plan and then come back to ask for a deviation. I don't think that circumstance has a real likelihood of occurring in the future now that we have moved the development order inspectors back inside the planning department. We have a very diligent staff with regard to development order inspections today. When this building went up, our development order inspectors had been moved to Public Works and had been tasked with a number of other responsibilities, and this was not their primary responsibility at the time. We do now have people that are dedicated to this particular task and are very diligent in making sure that what was approved actually is inspected as being in compliance with the approved plan. So I don't think the circumstance will have a great likelihood of reoccurring in the future. And we could deal with this as an isolated incident and have a site-specific solution to it.
It looks like most of these trees are missing.
We did plant the live oaks that are required. They're clumped together on either side of the property, on the east and the west, because there's a minimum requirement for a certain number of oaks. We put those in. We planted in all the minimum requirements. We just added some aesthetic things like the palm trees and the bamboo.
So all the minimum requirements are there?
Absolutely, and that's what was checked when the inspector came out and issued the CO to make sure our building was compliant.
Okay.
We just spent a little more money to dress it up even nicer.
So the inspector didn't notice 3, 5, 30-foot trees?
He just didn't build it.
It's not his fault.
Based on the plan.
Well, I think that, and Madam Attorney, I'm sorry I'm picking on you so much tonight, but if you could clarify, the deviation request before us is not to approve the landscaping for the entire site as proposed.
It's to leave it as
For the
is.
bamboo.
Well, no,
Well,
no,
it's
it is
just
simply
for the
to allow the
bamboo.
bamboo.
Right.
So I think we have a separate
Yeah,
code enforcement issue regarding the lack of other landscaping, and part of my job as chairman is to try to keep us on task here. We do have other applicants that have been patiently waiting.
I'd like to make a
So,
motion.
yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the bamboo as is.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Do we have any other comment by members of the board? I support the motion, just
I
to be
think that
clear.
if it had come before us with that initially, I think I would have approved
Mhm,
that
mhm.
particular plan,
Mhm.
because it does soften the building.
I agree.
Okay, do we have any comment from members of the public, and that does include the applicants? Nope. All right, in that case, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed signify by no.
no.
Okay, the motion
Thank you.
passes 4-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe that disposes of all three components of the deviation request.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, can we take like a very short rest?
Yes, we can. No apology necessary.
All right.
So that,
It is kind of chilly in here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. Maybe your metabolism is altered. Okay.
assistance.
Okay, we'll reconvene the meeting in a few seconds here. Okay, we're bringing the
I hear you.
meeting back to order. The next item up on the agenda is the DHI mortgage building sign. Tim?
Thank you. This is a request for a building sign measuring 12.625 inches by 168 inches for a total of 14.73 square feet. It's located in Santa Rosa Plaza, which is the only major plaza on Highway 98 that does not have a master signage plan, so that's why we're here. This sign is in compliance. It meets all the scenic corridor requirements, and I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Okay, staff, or, board, do you have any questions of staff? Okay, I think this one's pretty straightforward, so if we want to get a motion in play, then we'll invite public input once the motion's in play.
I move we approve.
You have a second?
A second.
Okay, properly motioned and seconded to approve as submitted. Any members of the public have any comment? Any applicants like to make any comments? Okay, thank you.
And
All right.
is this lit in any way?
It's easy.
There's no, is there lighting?
Sir, if you're the applicant, would you like to come forward and just identify yourself and answer the question?
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, the question is the sign lit?
Yes.
Okay. Should we have him?
Yeah,
if
could
you wouldn't
just
mind.
come forward and state your name? I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Just trying to find where it says. How it's lit.
I am Terry Akins with Southern Signs,
Okay,
and it is lit with LEDs.
okay.
Lit internally inside the letters?
Inside the letters.
Very good. Okay, in that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That might be a record.
Nice change of pace. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Coast Realty office relocation. Tim Brown.
Thank you. This is a major development application submitted by Jenkins Engineering requesting approval to develop 1,885 square feet of commercial/office space on 0.96 acres with the future land use of village mixed use. As the name implies, they're relocating this building from another location. So they're repurposing that building onto this parcel. And everything meets the scenic corridor requirements. So I'll entertain any questions, but it is in full compliance with the scenic corridor guidelines.
Okay.
Well, can,
Yeah, go ahead. Any questions of staff?
on the landscape plan, it shows crepe myrtles across the front, so, and no live oaks. So is that requirement for live oaks flexible? What?
Yes, because there's overhead power lines. The code allows for live oak replacements when there's overhead power lines.
And a crepe myrtle is an understory.
Yes.
Doesn't make it as tall as live oaks.
They have live oaks in the back.
That's really the only,
Parking's in the back.
it talks about soils and as well, but really the only time we deviate from live oaks is when there's overhead power lines. We've had this discussion before, but I'll bring it up again. Gulf Power wants nothing in there. Zip, nada, nothing. And, that's just, we have to follow our code, but the code does allow for understory trees, and so they don't interfere with the power lines.
So here's another question. We had this come up on a previous development that was done with power in these areas where the power lines are so close. What would be the normal requirement of trees across the front here?
You still have to meet the minimum number.
I know, but that's what I'm asking. Understory plus, whatever you call the live oaks,
Yes.
canopy?
Canopy, yes.
Canopy trees. How many would be required here total?
Well, it should show the total on the landscape plan.
No, I think Ms. Moore's question is if canopy trees are permitted to be replaced with understory trees, then should we see the total number of trees being the required canopy plus the required understory?
Yes.
So the question is 3 trees of both kinds all that would be required for this frontage?
Based on that distance.
Or should there be additional crepe myrtles or other understory trees?
No, because of the narrowness of
The lot,
of
okay.
the lot.
Yeah, that's my question.
So 3 is right,
I think this is a fairly small building and a lot is.
because it's 1 per 40 for canopy and 1 per 75 for understory. So that only makes for 2 canopy trees and 1 understory
Perfect,
tree.
that was my question.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were asking me, but the answer
Yeah,
is,
there's
yeah, it's the total
there's a
of
scale.
both.
You can see that's 40 feet.
Yep.
So it is a pretty narrow lot.
That was my whole.
Yep. Okay, so any other questions from the board to the staff? Okay, I think this one's pretty straightforward. Do we want to get a motion in play before inviting public comment, or do we want to invite public comment?
I don't care.
Okay. Is the applicant's present. You guys want to make a presentation of any kind?
Good evening, everybody. Jamie Eubanks with Jenkins Engineering. Mr. Piazza is here. He is the architect on this. I don't have anything in particular to add. If you do have any building or architectural or color questions, Mr. Piazza is here.
Okay.
And I'm assuming all these colors meet the code.
Yes, they do.
Hello.
They're all, the Muncie colors. I did find Destin Paint. Tom was able to find the numbers and match them up. We've got the samples, brought the samples by if you need to look at those too.
I wouldn't mind seeing.
But basically, it's existing building, it's existing colors, it's cedar siding, and we're just getting a Muncie color that matches exact on that. The roof is basically the same with a white trim, and we're having like a teal accent door and shutters. That's all we're doing.
Can we see the samples?
Sure.
I like to be consistent.
We have the paint cans and we did paint stick in. Just kind of stuck together. So.
Creative sample making, I like it.
They were the only paint company I found that could do the Muncie colors.
I didn't say I had time to let them dry.
It looks a lot different. It looks different than what it does on our screen.
Yeah, the original colors on that thing were really yellow. I took it in face and Photoshop and tried to tone it down, and we had some copies made to match more with that color.
Thank you.
You have
'Cause-
copies that match more of this?
Yeah. That's as much as I did with
Oh, okay. Right.
Photoshop.
Right, gotcha.
It's challenging.
Just make sure we keep all that for Karen.
Okay.
Do you want the sticks?
I think she does probably.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome to have
Don't
it.
need the paint cans. though.
Okay.
But the teal is a little different. It's a little bluer in the thing, but that's
Mhm.
It's
But
supposed
this
to
is
be
the
better.
actual
That's it.
color.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
I like it too.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
It's just better than
Yep,
what you had.
and just, I'll note for the record, my usual questions about lighting. There is a note here on the site plan that says no outdoor lighting is proposed for this project. So, can't beat that,
Nope.
with a paint stick or not. Sorry,
Those colors.
we sneak some bad humor in everywhere. Okay, all right, I think we had the beginnings of a motion
Motion to
to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, proper motion and a second. Do we have any other public comment? Yes, sir.
My name is Don Darish. I'm a resident of Peach Creek subdivision. I'm not representing the subdivision. I'm just an individual homeowner. While I am sad to see progress coming to that part of the county, I've spoken with the that young
Mr.
man right
Jenkins.
there. Yes, and we're fine with it. We don't think it's going to impede our subdivision. We're not going to hear traffic and have constant in and out of there, and it'll be just fine.
Great.
Where is it exactly again? I'm sorry. Just curious.
Yeah,
Since
you know
we're
where
talking.
I'll forget the exact name, but the Christian Ministries building.
Yeah,
It's essentially directly across the road for the most part.
I got it. Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't realize.
Okay. I think that concludes all the comments, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item up is the shops at Inlet.
Yes, this is a major development application submitted by McNeil Carroll Engineering requesting approval to construct 13,462 square feet of retail space on 1.46 acres with the future land use of neighborhood infill and an Inland Beach traditional neighborhood plan designation of neighborhood commercial. This is the location of the proposed Dollar General that was proposed in Inland.
Oldie but a goodie.
Yes, but this is that location on North Lake Shore Drive. There's also an existing approved project to the east of this that they're going to include. So you see there's a master plan sheet that shows the whole development, but they're actually two separate. So that's what I want to make clear. That's Soldier's Canteen. It was previously approved. They are doing a minor, actually a less than minor amendment to change it a little bit, but it's essentially, it's going to be one big project, even though it's actually two separate approvals.
The minor amendment won't change the look of it, will it?
No, it will not.
I love the look of that building.
It's just some minor land improvements.
So much.
Just so you know, it's not really the purview of this board, but one of the biggest issues with the neighborhood is the circulation, because you can't turn left onto Highway 98 coming from North Lake Shore Drive. I'm probably stealing their thunder, but they've met with DOT, and DOT is not going to change that circulation. But they are putting in a right turn lane, right? So they are putting in a right turn lane on Highway 98 going west. So that will help. And that includes the Soldier's Canteen, right? So,
yeah,
so it's going to be kind of right in the middle of the development. But I just wanted you to know everything that's going on. When this gets further along the line, that's going to be a big issue. But DOT is not going to allow any change to that, what's out there.
So you're saying if you're headed east on 98, you can't make a left at North Walton Lake Shore?
You can. You can't make a left onto 98 from North Lake Shore.
Oh, okay.
You can only, that's a right turn only there. So that was one of the big concerns with Dollar General, was having to go down and do a U-turn to go east. Or that you would cut through, what's the name of that development behind it?
Oh, the one in Inland Beach?
I forget.
Mr. Chairman, the traffic circulation was reviewed at the Technical Review Committee. Engineering reviewed that and found it in compliance with the Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code. We did have a significant amount of public opposition about the inability to, for southbound North Walton Lake Shore Drive traffic to turn left and head back east. And there was some concern that they might use the interconnected street network that already exists to head back to the east. Our suggestion is most of the traffic coming to this is going to be coming from the west or the north. And this won't be as significant of a problem as the neighborhood suggested it might be. They were concerned that some folks might be using their neighborhood streets to go back to Panama City Beach.
Understood. That's not. I mean, this is
that's
my
not,
personal perspective on development. I'm not sure that the owners or developers of this project did anything to cause that issue.
They did not. That is a hardship of this particular neighborhood. At some point, it may change as the 6th laning of US 98 continues all the way to Bay County, as programmed in the long-range transportation plan. But at present, it meets the requirements of the code. We don't perceive that there's any unusual safety concern regarding the circulation. But as Tim mentioned, we just did have some folks in the neighborhood that just didn't like it.
A valid concern, but maybe laid at the wrong feet.
Yeah, and I just bring it up in the spirit of full disclosure.
Yeah, no, and that type of comment's been made to the DRB before. Okay, so question, just to make sure, because I have missed 1 or 2 meetings in the past couple of years. Is this the first time this body is seeing the landscape plan?
Yes.
Okay. And the landscape, I understand the site drawings, and we've got the two that show this is what we're considering.
Yes.
And this is the combined project.
That's right.
The landscape plan has the landscaping for both projects.
Yes, it does.
So could you talk a little bit about, are we modifying a previously approved landscape plan for the,
No, it encompasses the approved landscape plan for that other project.
so we've already approved this?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So they're the same.
That's why it looks familiar.
They're carrying
Okay.
on.
That's what I thought. I felt like I'd seen part of this before.
Yes, and it is a little confusing because you're only approving a portion of that, but that's where we're at.
Okay.
So what is across the front there?
I think they're numbered rather than a graphic legend.
Crepe myrtles.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're just numbered.
Yeah, I'm working on finding what everything.
Okay.
Table at the bottom, it lists.
Yeah, they're numbered. Excuse me.
Height, what is that? What kind of live oak?
There are live oaks.
I know, what kind? Height, rise? Never heard of that. Cool.
30 inch, high rise live oak.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Sounds like another
So
name
it's
for a cathedral type.
Basically a mixture of live oaks and crepes.
Yeah.
Am I reading that right, Robert?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and there's some elm in the landscape islands.
Oh, is that the bigger ones? Yeah. Wait, no, that's a lot.
Y'all have any, I'm sort of moved on to the lighting plan. While the lighting levels, are those in foot candles? They're pretty low for most of the site, which is good.
They are.
Great, okay, that's a good thing. So don't take my next comment the wrong way, but I'll pose it anyway. Do I understand the note at the top here? These are pretty high mast lights, 25-foot mounting height, or am I misunderstanding what this note at the top is?
You ready for me to come up?
Yeah, oh yeah, you can take a look.
Oh, yeah.
I just meant to come up to the podium. I didn't know if you were
Oh
going
yeah,
to
come on up.
staff.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Robert Carroll, McNeil Carroll Engineering, 17800 Panama City Beach Parkway. I'm the engineer of record here on behalf of the owner. That lighting plan was done by Gulf Power, so we hired them because they're going to be installing the lights, maintaining the lights. So they did the photometrics, they did all the lighting. So
Okay, so it's their normal kind
yes,
of,
we've got residential to the north, so we're maintaining that buffer there because we got to be mindful of the residential. It's vacant directly across from us, but where the old oyster bar, the Soldier's Canteen restaurant, there's some existing homes in that area. So
yeah. I guess if I'm understanding the plan correctly, two of those lights are mounted, and I'm not looking at the scale, but judging by the parking spaces, they're 25-foot tall lights mounted 20 feet from the
I'm not sure of the heights,
property line.
the actual lights themselves. I don't have that.
I'm gonna. I mean, it sounds like. I mean, you mentioned in Gulf Power. What it sounds like is it's your typical quote telephone pole, power pole mounted, galvanized sodium vapor light, which is unfortunate. Okay, well, I'm going to ask one of my usually complicated questions, which is there a way to move the project forward but not approve the lighting? With the intent that the lighting come back at a...
I think we could do that, right, Mac?
We could do that.
Is it the fixtures or is it the amount of light or?
Well, let's all jump in this boat. Let's say you and me were neighbors living right here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to look out my back door and see a light pole mounted 25 feet in the sky, especially to the south. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm probably sitting on my back porch to kind of look at the nice, beautiful stars, and instead I'm looking at this sodium vapor light courtesy of Gulf Power. So I think we all said a lot of good things. Project's great. I feel like the lighting is absolutely out of character with the project, and that is the purview of this board.
And don't we normally see the light fixtures and all that?
Yeah, but I think you've answered the challenge is it's kind of got dropped in Gulf Power's lap, and we're getting the Gulf Power special.
Yeah, the focus was on the photometrics and on the
Yeah,
amount of
and
light itself.
the photometrics and everything are fine. It's a relatively relatively low level of lighting. The problem is that something that's 25
It's the
feet
fixture
tall
itself
is
that's
highly
your concern.
visible from the neighbors.
And it would be great if it was a nicer fixture.
Yeah,
Like normally we see the light fixtures, it shows the cutoff.
and I can assure you, mine tend is never to hold a project up, but I think the lighting will be so far down the road, and it's such a relatively small component of the project that
We're
I
gonna come back for signage anyway,
Yeah.
so maybe that portion could be, if that's possible.
Okay. I mean,
Since we'll meet the level of lighting,
Because normally we see a picture of the fixture and what the cutoff
We have.
specs is and all that. You got that?
My name's Wade Bradley. I'm with DAG Architects. We have a lighting package for the building. We just don't have anything for the site lighting. We could incorporate some of that. We did use Gulf Power, but we could get a lighting rep involved in that as well. So
I think it would
something
really
we
be
could- we could resolve that.
benefit for the building.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely. And the neighbors.
Yeah.
the owner, he did a development just down the street. We were here before you, the Crossings, and
Yeah.
he met those standards. And I would imagine it's gonna be the same exact lighting that we had on that one. Those fixtures worked out great for phase 1, phase 2, so.
Okay.
He is extremely mindful of the character of the building and of the site, so.
Yeah. Because I can't picture in my mind what the lighting of the site looks like on that project, but the building lighting I think is quite nice on the Crossings. So I may have missed it, but again, I'm just going by the piece of paper. But a 25-foot mounting height, that's pretty sporty.
Yeah, does sound pretty tall.
And normally we see actually all of the light fixtures.
Yeah. So okay, I guess if that discussion is sufficient for you to understand what our problem. It's not that
Sure,
we think the
absolutely.
site's overlit. It's just it's the character of the
It's
light
the fixture
fixtures
itself.
themselves.
Yes.
Do we have any other questions? I know I kind of interrupted the conversation about the landscape plan. Did we?
No, I think we're good on that.
Nice variety.
And good amounts.
Looks nice.
It
The
almost
building
looks
looks
like
nice.
it exceeds the standard.
I know you're here we're looking for aesthetics and landscape and colors, lighting, but if you want any background on the access and the access management, I can shed light on that, but
Well,
you're not concerned, that's just as fun.
Well, I think we're not concerned with it for two reasons. One is there's nothing you've done, from best I can tell, and second, it isn't really the purview of this board. So, glad you loaded for bear, but keep them in the holsters.
I'm here to answer all the concerns of the neighborhood, so.
I would move on.
Now, we have met with the community, and so, and they have seen, since they know the developer and know he's part of the community, they know what he's doing, so I think that helps.
Feedback. Do y'all have a color palette, samples, anything?
I have some samples.
We
It
can
goes
see that.
along with the exhibit.
Great. Yep, that's this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there's a key on the second page.
You can just pass it down.
They're on the back, and they have I think they have the muscle color number that they're kind of corresponding to, and then they also have the number that's related to the actual paint sticks.
Okay.
Like the paint sticks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not as creative as the paint sticks from before.
I'm sure you're jealous.
Paint sticks are going to get reused on the actual project.
There you go.
I'm gonna bring a lamp pole to the next meeting, so.
There you go.
That will be helpful.
It's a nice looking
Yeah, I
building.
think it's a nice.
Thank you.
Mhm.
He gets credit, not me.
The only thing that we didn't bring with us is the wood sample that's in the building. And it'll be, most likely will be like a quarter sawn, rough sawn oak that'll be sealed, that won't be painted. So it'll weather, but not weather to the point where it looks like cedar. It won't be gray, it'll be a natural wood color, but it'll be sealed.
That's those
Good.
accents like behind the signage and on the end.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's nice, nice.
Very nice.
And around the doors. The reclaimed wood siding is around the doors.
Oh,
And windows,
Those
yeah.
panels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see on one side it's around behind the siding too. I mean behind the signage. Yeah.
I actually think the,
That's the cross.
no, they're still there. savings provides that.
LED.
Okay, do we have any other questions of the applicant or staff?
I have, just, this is just curiosity, and sorry, you know, we're ready to get out of here, but this is quick. Will this have a master signage plan? It will.
Yes, I would imagine it will.
Okay.
He did a crossing, so he's gonna probably do the same exact thing here.
So I guess the motion would,
Without the lights.
does the motion need to be clear that we're not approving signage? And of course, we're pulling the
Well,
site lighting?
signage is never approved.
Is never
at
approved as part of
stage,
this, okay.
But
Yep.
I would make it clear that you're not approving.
Yeah.
So the
Approval
lights.
making, actually, isn't it?
What?
I think that's gonna be a change,
Oh,
our little changes that would have taken 100 years to.
gotcha. But for now.
But for now.
But I would make it clear that you're not approving the lighting at this time.
Yeah, okay.
The site lighting?
The site lighting, yes.
Mhm.
So,
Mr. Chairman, would you like to continue the site lighting item to next month?
yeah, that's a great idea. We don't-
And we could approve the rest, if that
Okay.
would be your pleasure.
Yeah.
Is that doable for you guys?
As long as we can keep moving.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the goal. Just
That way we wouldn't have to have a new application to consider the lighting.
Perfect, yep,
And the DRB meets before the planning commission meets.
yep.
My question was just, can you get it in a month?
We will accommodate, yes, we will get it done.
Okay, do we have anyone willing to make a motion? Remember, I'm the chair, I can't make motions.
Motion to approve,
Second.
With,
except for the lighting.
okay,
Continuing the lighting,
yep.
site lighting to the next meeting.
Did you capture that, Karen? Perfect. Okay, do we have a second?
He did.
We have a second. All right, any further discussion, questions, public input, applicants? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. They have to keep them. I'm sure they could be dealt with later.
Well, the numbers.
You can take pictures of them if you want to before you leave. You want to take pictures of them?
We'll grab the numbers, whatever you want to do.
Do you want your paint samples back, or do we
He
keep
just
those?
needs
We
the
keep-
numbers.
Oh, you want the numbers, okay.
Okay, so that brings up, next item is the public workshop to discuss amendments to chapter 13.
Do we have the?
We lost it. I think we have a draft, a red line draft that's looking pretty complete.
Yes, I think we're finished with signage. The only thing is, I think you wanted to do some more with the lighting.
Well, I'm going to suggest that we've been playing around with this. I think we captured at least one under page 2, item 4, lighting. We made, I think, some improvement into the on the item that came up tonight. That the color spectrum of the lighting is limited to something that I think most people find appealing, and not too blue. And the height is restricted, which I think is important for the reasons we talked about this evening on this project. So I'm satisfied that that's making progress. I'll just have to do my homework properly and try to come back at a future time with some more dark sky type stuff, but I think that's a big improvement.
So if we're not gonna come back with more dark sky stuff at the moment,
Yeah.
in this set of changes, then I have a question. The kelvins is the color of the light.
Yes.
Can there be varying brightnesses within those kelvins?
Yes, that's totally separate.
So,
And the intensity of light, the foot candles, is regulated by chapter 5, I believe.
Yeah, and that's why we have, on page 1, lighting shall conform with chapter 5 of this code, which does have brightness.
so here's my thing though, like, I don't know, I know we don't like to point out specific developments, but I need to. Publix on 98 in Santa Rosa Beach is incredibly bright, and it meets code today. If we're gonna make changes to lighting, I would like to do something to not allow that to happen again.
Okay. That is intensity of light, so that's a.
So we're not addressing that here in this paragraph we're adding.
Yeah, because the code hasn't been updated in a number of years, but we did go through a bunch of workshops and everything when we were doing lighting originally. But for commercial development, it allows for 15-foot candles at the property line. That is very bright.
That's too bright. So I would really hate to let this opportunity go by without.
So we want to focus on, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what would it take for you to be able to come up with more dark
Well,
sky?
Okay, well,
It
let's,
doesn't have to be like.
yeah, well,
I'm
that's,
just talking foot candles. If
yeah,
we just get
okay. Well, how, Madam Attorney, what sort of runway do we have left on this process?
We have quite a bit because we continued our. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
Because
Okay.
we keep continuing the first one, and you can continue
Oh, well,
this
yeah,
one
we're
again.
getting a lot of mileage out of this. Okay, good. Okay, I'm sorry, I thought we were getting close to the end of the runway, and I didn't want to be the
We
guy who screwed
extended
up
the
the process.
runway.
Okay,
That
cool.
might be what you're thinking.
So we'll have
All
two
right.
after tonight.
It's two after tonight, and
Well, I will come prepared next time.
Well, and I don't think we have to have, I mean, I'm
Watch
okay
that.
with an extensive dark skies effort maybe for later.
Yeah.
But I don't want to not address the level of brightness, intensity.
Understood, okay. Yeah.
Somehow.
And big parking lots are the major problem. The dark sky guy, I don't know if I mentioned when I forwarded the information through Tim, the executive director of that organization, I thought was coming to the area, and he promised to contact me when he came here. He was vacationing somewhere nearby, and I never heard from him. So my dreams of having the expert come to us, I guess, didn't materialize, but.
Can we Skype him in or?
Yeah, well, I don't mind, yeah, I don't mind. I mean, Tim, maybe you and I should just, before I walk out of here tonight, agree to a day in the next couple of weeks to
Yeah.
meet, and that way we'll come into the meeting with you guys, the information, rather than be presented at the meeting.
Yeah, because we would probably take,
Yeah.
we could, instead of using chapter 5, we can, or we can do it on the next page, because chapter 5 was going back to the foot candles. We can just add a provision for chapter 13, so if it, if it's outside the scenic corridor, you go with chapter 5. If it's in the scenic corridor, you go with chapter 13.
And we have spoken before, David, you I think brought it up, that we would love to see it changed for all of, at least South Walton, if not Walton County.
Yeah.
But that's not within our purview, so.
Yep. But I think large parking lots are a great target to start with, get that worked out, and then, work into the smaller projects.
Mr. Chairman, that the Chapter 5 is within the purview of the Matrix Design Group's tasking for updating our comprehensive plan and land development code. The land development code process kicks off on November 13.
Okay.
So it's possible that if we had recommendations for lighting throughout the code, that we'd have a place to insert them.
Okay.
For consideration.
Well, that's certainly incentive, right? Because, I mean, dark sky, I want to say that one of the things identified that I learned reading that article that was circulated is light pollution has an impact over distances like 20 plus miles. And so, we're dealing with the light pollution from Destin and from Panama City Beach, and if we start contributing to it, our nighttime sky is gone.
Exponentially.
Yeah,
Kind of.
we don't have to add much for us to start having the yellow sky that exists over there.
Am I missing something, or is 5 not in here? It goes from 4 lighting.
No, that's separate chapter.
It's chapter 5.
No, you're right. No, you're right. This draft, it goes from
Oh, you
4
mean.
to 6.
Right.
Page top of page 3.
Yes, but
Right.
there's
Yeah.
no 5, is that what we're
There's no
saying?
5, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
There's no 5, yeah.
There's no 5?
There is some administrative
On
cleanup
page 2,
that could
3.
stand to happen.
It goes from 4 to 6, from lighting to parking.
Huh.
Matrix
I have
stuff,
5.
administrative stuff.
Or is that one?
I have 5.
You do?
Huh?
I have 5.
We don't.
Yours looks different than ours.
Pages 2 and 3.
Bottom of page 2 is 4, lighting. Refer to exhibit 3. A, B, and then it goes to 6.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. It goes from 4. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's good. Just a formatting thing, and I don't know if it's.
I'll fix that.
Okay.
I think it sometimes Word does whatever it wants.
Yes, it does. Okay. Okay, so we good on that?
Yeah, okay.
You said set a date before you leave tonight, you mean?
I will,
after the
Tim.
meeting?
No, I mean, with Tim and I will
Wow.
agree to sit down, and that way Tim can send you all something for Redline for the next meeting.
Are we actually having a workshop right now?
Yeah, this one will
Oh.
count.
This one
That's
count?
okay.
Okay, because I have another. when we're
Sorry, I
done-
burned a little
Are we
runway.
done with lighting?
Yeah.
Because I have a signage question. You ready? And it's interesting because this Shops at Inlet is, well, potentially could be an example, another example of this. So I'm wondering if it is already treated within the code, or we need to make a change that will address it, or if we even feel like we need to address it. Okay, so we got three possibilities
options.
there. And I'm going to have to again talk about a specific development that I happen to be very fond of, but the crossings, same developer, their architecture of their building has an architectural element above every bay that is part of the signage. Think about one, it's got the bump out that goes around the sign.
Uh-huh.
The challenge comes when a tenant takes more than one bay, okay? So if you have a fixed signage element in your architecture that's based on bays, to me, it creates an issue. And now what we have is the Destin Ice, or what is it? What's that seafood market?
Cuvée went up?
38 Destin Ice Company
Yeah.
or something like that.
So they have 2 bays and they're also on a corner, so they now have 3 signs. And if they didn't have signs in there, it would look weird because they'd just be blank architectural
Right.
things. You see where I'm going? It's like when a developer chooses to do that, then we have, and I don't know if that signage is legal or not, or it was addressed in their signage plan or what. I know they have a master signage plan, but I'm just saying it's weird. It's awkward. It creates an awkward condition.
What struck me about that particular sign earlier this week was the type or the color of the text, the red type.
Well, that's part
It's
of
the only sign on that building that has a different color of type on their sign.
Was that the one that started out that all the signs had to be black and white?
Yes.
And so now somebody.
Now someone has added a red text to their
Yeah,
sign.
I'm not sure if that's been approved or. It's
I
not ringing a bell with me because I would have approved it under their master signage plan, and it's
I
not
think
ringing
their
a bell.
master signage plan allowed for different colors on phase 2.
It
Phase
did.
1, they did all
Well, I
black.
think you're right. Phase 2, you're
But
yes.
phase 2, they decided to go with the variation in color.
That's
So
right.
From a color perspective, I mean, I get it, it's bright, and but we don't regulate the color of copy on signs anywhere. I mean, there's some really bright red signs all over the corridor, and yellow and green. But my point is that a tenant, if it takes multiple bays, ends up with a bunch of signage if the architecture drives the signage placement. You know what I'm talking
Well, I
about?
think that would have to be addressed in the master signage plan when they came in, because the code addresses you can have a longer sign if you have multiple bays. I mean, it takes into that account.
But you still only get,
If you have 3 bays, instead of having 3 separate signs, you can have one longer sign than
With the
we would
same
otherwise
kind of
approve.
outline.
When somebody's already put the architectural
Right,
element.
that's why I
That's
say
my point.
it needs to, because they did that and it's addressed in their master science, because they show pictures of what it's supposed to look like on the building. So I think you would have to address it at that point, because
And I don't think we thought
oh, well,
about
maybe
it
that's actually,
when it came
you may have
through.
described architecturally the way we can solve this problem. A signage, with master signage plans, if they use that type of scheme, would need to include a demonstration of what would the signage for a 2-bay tenant look like.
And they could even have 3 bays, really.
Yeah, or a 3-bay tenant.
Yeah, that's-
In other words, if they're going to have that approved without coming back to us, the multi-bay tenants, that scheme, that is a requirement of the scheme. They don't get to make up what happens.
yeah, that's where I was coming from, because
Yeah.
they just show 1 sign per bay on their master
And-
signage plan, and that's how the buildings are designed.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to take into account, well, what if someone
They did. and
Yeah,
then-
so I think, I mean,
Seascape.
is it addressing your concern to say that?
Well, here's where I'm going next.
Well, does it address your concern to say either their master signage plan has to include a plan for that type of tenant, or they have to bring that back to us because it doesn't comply with their master signage plan? And that actually may bring up a solution for the existing conditions where that's occurring. If the code is interpreted that those multi-bay tenants were not approved as part of the master signage plan, then they gotta come back to us anyway. If that was a valid interpretation.
I'm gonna have to think on that.
Okay.
And
Well,
where
I mean,
I'm
they're
going.
putting the signs where the master plan shows signs.
it's
Understood,
just
but
suddenly
what
gotta-
it's,
And if it, I guess
mean-
if the master signage plan didn't specifically prohibit that,
Are the
that might
signs
be the-
identical that they put
They
up?
are.
That would be my
They
take on it, is that they shouldn't be identical to each other.
yeah.
But then again, you've got a business that has much more signage.
Well,
than-
we'll use my favorite, which is the
Other.
Thrills
Yeah.
Well, but he,
arcade, which the architecture even compounded because the middle of the bay that multi-bay tenant was located in had architectural features that prevented the sign from doing what Tim described, which
Right.
is just make a bigger, longer version of the same sign.
yes.
They couldn't do that because of
Well,
the end
This
caps
is
and
why,
that
this
whatnot.
is why I wanted to make the change, which I believe we've made, where they have to get their signage plan approved when they get the development approved.
Right.
Because one of our challenges is we're having the development get approved, and then we get a signage plan 6 months later, but we didn't think about the architectural limitations. To, like here, I mean, this has some placeholders for signage,
Yeah.
but what I'm proposing, and I think our new changes will make, the condition is, they'll actually have to, like, make up fake names, because they say, well, how do we know what our signage is, because we don't know who our tenants are yet. It can say ABC, 1, 2, 3. I
Right.
don't care who, but they've got to show where the signage is gonna go, how big it's gonna be. In my opinion, that's the best way. But to take this a step further, so that's a 2-bay tenant that now has 3 signs at crossings. But if you think about Thrills, if I'm remembering correctly, they have 6 bays of that building. So if they had some kind of architectural element for their signage over their bays, we would thrills.
Right, right.
I mean, you know, so it could become.
But they used, I mean,
if we don't
they
address
used
the bigger
that,
issue.
that logic of we have multiple bays to try to
Well, they
justify
did.
the larger signs.
And we
So
let
if the architecture had been one great big wide low bay, you wouldn't be, so, I mean, the whole concept of using bays to try to justify stuff, I think we need to get around that by saying whether you have, the master sign plan is contemplating predominantly single bay tenants. In order for you to have a 2-bay tenant with anything more than one of those signs, it has to be presented as a multi-bay tenant. Here's what a sign looks like. We need to write into the code a limitation. Each tenant only gets one, regardless of how many bays, because the bays are an architectural fabrication. They're not.
Right.
Yeah, and here's the
They're
thing
not
too,
standard
David,
general.
about that.
Yeah.
Yes, you're exactly right. But there's a further complicating element when you're talking about the architecture, but I'm talking about on crossings, they have a bump out piece of stucco that is at the top of every bay that is intended. And I agree that if one of those were left blank, it would look weird. But that created a condition that almost forces you to have too much sign for multi-bay tenants. So we've got to think about that.
Well,
It's
I guess
gotta
what I'm
be,
getting
like,
at is that we were going
movable or
to.
changeable
Right.
or something
Yeah.
if they're going to do it.
Right.
It's my point.
Well, I mean, I agree that human nature is if you see 4 of something and then there's a space where there should be a 5th, you're going to say, well, why isn't there a 5th one there? I don't think that the lack of a sign on a bay
It's
is
not the lack
is any
of the
more of a
sign.
problem when the bay is empty than.
It's not just the lack of the sign. I'm saying when there's an architectural element that is part of a frame for a sign.
Yeah.
That's different. Just a blank wall, I'm fine with. That's okay. But when they built crossings and the development order that we approved initially, before we ever saw any signage plan, I remember it showed those squares, and I actually kind of like them. They're a nice way to denote your signage, But the problem is they're permanent.
But they do,
They're a
yeah, they need to
permanent part of
be
the
able to
building
be
facade.
adjusted.
Yeah,
They need to be able to be adjusted in case like you've got 3 people in, or 1 person in 3 bays, and then all of a sudden they move out and you've got 3 people in 3 bays.
Yeah, but
So,
I guess what I'm saying is that if the default is, unless they present, what we don't want is 2 identical signs. So we need to prohibit
I'd
that.
rather see an empty one than
Yeah.
an
Well, I would too, but I get that it's not great to have a frame sitting up on the top of your building. But yeah,
Well, what I'm saying is-
and right now, I'm saying there's nothing to prohibit that. Like, right now, Destin Ice has 3 identical signs. Bless you.
bless you.
Okay.
Phew.
How many mattress stores do we have?
Goodness.
Yeah,
So
like
you see what I'm getting, where
5.
I'm going, Mac? It creates a problem.
Yeah, and that's why I think in order to try to do it through the whole corridor, I think we do it individually with the master sign plan. And you're right, this none of us realized that when they came in. We're just looking at, hey, this looks nice. We don't have a problem
And
with
we weren't even
it.
considering signage. That's one of the reasons to consider signage when the building is approved. So yeah, now I'm saying we need to consider it. Like, I wish I had thought to ask, well, what if you have a multi-bay tenant? What are you gonna do with all those empty frames? You know?
Right, right.
And I don't think any one of us thought about that.
No.
When that one came through the process.
Exactly.
Because it was so defined as individual bays.
Exactly, but now I'm thinking about it.
But it could be something adjustable, couldn't it? Could they could build something or frame it in something that's adjustable?
Yeah.
Maybe,
Well,
no?
That's stucco.
Yeah.
But
It's a challenging little situation.
It is.
we would certainly be interested in entertaining suggested language to be included in the update
Yeah.
that would address this kind of thing.
I think it's a multi-part solution. I think the first part of the solution is we need to stop the Destin Ice seafood example. In other words, we need to prohibit in the code multi-bay tenants having multiple single bay signs. That's step 1. We prevent that from happening. The second piece would be you cannot have multi-bay signs, regardless of the architecture, unless in your master sign plan, unless it's designed and presented as part of the approved master sign plan. You can't make it up. And that way, they either have a multi-bay plan or they have to bring it to us. Now, the third problem of what happens if a multi-bay tenant chooses to leave a sign blank, well, I guess what I'm saying is I know that looks slightly, human nature wants to put a sign in that. I don't think it's fundamentally a problem. I mean, there could be a building design where it looks so awkward that it looks like something's missing from the building. But as an example, I don't think the crossings rises to that level. It looks a little weird not to see a sign there, but I think it's better not to see a sign there than to see the identical sign to the bay next to it.
Or you could do, I mean, there should
Does
be
that
some
make sense?
options, like maybe put in where that's empty, instead of leaving it empty, do just small, not a rooster, but something that might kind of go along with
Yeah.
whatever the store is.
It could be
Something just-
it could be a default graphic of the graphic for the development.
Yeah, like a logo for the development.
Yeah, it could be
or
something like that. There, yeah.
But and another thing is if you say that you cannot
Or a decorative
have,
do that.
if you say that you cannot have those multi-bay tenants with identical tenant signs per bay, then the developer has to decide, then do they want to design it with a permanent element per bay that's incorporated in
Right.
signage? And they just have to know that if they have a multi-bay tenant, they're gonna have blank spots.
Because they probably didn't think of that.
Or it
either.
could
They
be
probably
required
did.
that they put something in there, something just decorative in there, just not so they've got 3 times Mattress World, but they could have Mattress World once and
That's
then
kind of tough, but yeah.
picture of a mattress.
Didn't Silver Sands have blanks that they put up
Do I?
when they're not
I think
assigned that
so,
space?
like of a shell or something.
It's effectively a sign without text.
I'm not sure, maybe,
They might.
yeah. But I think this is really, I've only seen this issue with that building, and I think what's driving it is that permanent frame above each bay.
But it looked good. Didn't they have that on the master plan in the seascape initially,
Well, I wasn't gonna bring that up, but yes, they did. And that's one thing that makes me think of this. What if they had done that, then we'd be sitting here like, because that would be weird to have a whole bunch of blanks.
Right.
Might be better than the
They just
signs
didn't
up there.
happen to do it. But it did, the renderings.
Crossing, to me, is the red text. I mean, in all of my sign training, you only put red text on, emergency signs.
But
That's the way it used to be, and the manual uniform traffic control devices for public signs, that's still the way it is. But people have gotten away from that in the last 30 years. And now color draws your eye, and
Oh, yeah.
it's no holds barred as far as signs go.
I mean, I know I'm a kind of an extremist on this stuff, but I wouldn't mind seeing the color of the building signage copy restricted. But right now it's wide open. They could put neon pink or green or whatever.
No.
And we have a whole bunch of red, a bunch.
The code still does not allow neon, but
But I mean the color.
Yes.
A really bright pink or a really bright.
and mostly what drove that decision was logos. I mean, logos are typically primary colors, which we don't allow in the scenic corridor. They're red, they're blue, they're yellow, they're green. So that's really what drove that decision. We wouldn't
Or in the case of
apply
Allen Island,
color to signage because you think of, McDonald's, Burger King,
I mean, I could.
Wendy's.
Silver Sands, they put a blank. It was the color of the background of the other signs, and it's just a blank with no text on it.
Mhm. That's what you're talking about. Those
Yeah.
burgundy, those
Yeah.
burgundy blanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really don't think we should let the blank, that's not the primary problem. There's a solution for that, and again, we could require the solution. We could say your master signage plan needs to include your typical single bay tenant signage. It needs to include multi-bay tenant signage. If you think the biggest one you're gonna have is a 3-bay tenant, then show us that one. If you have a 4-bay tenant come in, you gotta come back to us.
Let me say
The
something.
master signage plan needs to be more comprehensive is what we're kind of getting at.
Yeah, because I think it was silent on this.
Yeah, and so then the development then makes the decisions, which is not. And that's what I'm saying.
That's what's happened.
I feel
yes.
like we could, it seems like we've got a toehold to interpret this such that Destin Ice shouldn't have done what they did.
From a real estate standpoint, one thing I've learned about developers, they don't have the mentality. Well, the bank won't let them have the mentality of if we build it, they will come. They already have an idea if they don't have executed potential leases
I think that works great.
in place before they even come see you. As a general rule of thumb, they already pretty much know, especially if it's a development that has to have an anchor.
Mm-hmm.
They already know who they're building it for. So, I mean, it may help too, and I'm not sure if we can do this or not, but just asking a question, do you know who your tenants are going to be at this point? Because I know from a development standpoint, most of them don't even stick a shovel in the ground or pay an engineer to do anything until they've got 50% of that building leased, or at least potentially leased. So they know in advance who they're building it for. They may not know every bay, but they know who they're building it for.
And some of them they may share with us, some of them they may not, because they don't want someone else robbing them through a
Yeah.
development down the street. So I mean,
Right.
they're
Yeah.
secretive about some of them,
I
but I
don't
think
care
that
who the
it doesn't
tenant
really
is.
matter. They can make
It's
up
the
names.
structure of the, yeah, that's what I mean. It can be,
Yeah, Montgomery
Artist
Ward.
Trading Post or what, I don't care. We just put something
just
there.
dated yourself for
I'm
real.
more concerned about about the architecture and like I said, it's normally. I mean, we've got plenty of multi-bay tenants out there in shopping centers and developments all across the corridor, but I don't know of any that have an architectural element that's permanently affixed to the building that's related to their signage. And that's what's creating this. Because normally if you have 3-bay tenant, they'll just put the sign in the middle. And like you said, the code allows them to maybe elongate it depending on the length. That's fine. I'm fine with that. But I don't want, ABC Inc., ABC Inc., ABC Inc.
Are you saying they shouldn't frame it?
Well, that's one way to address the problem. That's one
Well,
way.
I think there's ways. I mean, Silver Shells has got one way to do it. I think that there are plenty of back when or in areas that masonry buildings are predominant. you know, it's not uncommon for a multi-bay building to have some masonry details around there. That's absolutely permanent. You're not breaking that off the building. And some of them are blank, some of them have signs in. You know, if the architectural element repeats itself enough, it may be that most of them don't have anything in it, and every so often there's something in it. But I guess question for staff is, have we rambled on enough for you all to have an idea of what you're trying to draft, or should one of us try to
something up? At least partly resolve what you're talking about. I don't know about completely, but
if Ms. Moore will agree to meet with you between now and the next meeting, maybe Tim can take a stab at it, and then y'all can meet. Just.
I don't think it. I mean, I think it's pretty.
I think it'd be nice if the goal, because the runway is starting to run out, that these changes we're talking about, it would be ideal they would be drafted and sent to us with the package in advance, so that when we walk in here, we have a good chance of getting this thing in final form, so that at the third one, we're
good to go.
Good.
And that's been happening. It's just we've been looking at the same draft for what, 5 meetings?
Yeah.
Now, so.
At least 3.
Yeah.
At least 3 meetings.
Okay, what's next?
Adjournment?
The
Well,
dates.
we got
Did
meeting
we do the
dates.
dates?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we closing the workshop?
Yeah,
Okay.
No.
Madam Attorney, we're closing the
For tonight.
workshop?
Yes.
We good with that? Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. Okay, next item up is meeting dates.
We need a motion to approve them?
I haven't seen any. Is there a draft? Oh, I'm sorry.
Here you go.
There probably is.
Right there.
Yep, I'll open it up
Here's
here.
this.
Okay.
If you need a paper copy.
Nope, I'm good. It's open now. Thank you. I'm sorry, didn't hit the tab.
You've got
Looks
July
grand
to me.
5th on here.
A little tricky.
Yeah, July 5th is probably not good.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
We want to move that a week later? Does that set in motion a big,
You have to pick a Wednesday. You would have to move it to a Wednesday.
so the following Wednesday? Is that?
I'm fine with it staying the 5th, even if I take off the 4th of July.
The 5th
I wanna
is-
take off that week.
Is a Thursday, yeah, always the first Thursday, so. I think the 4th falls on a Wednesday, so we'll be going back to work Thursday anyway.
Yeah.
They'll be partying the weekend before. I'm
Okay.
fine with it.
Well, anybody have any changes they would like to make? In that case, do we have a motion to approve the schedule as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that brings us to a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Do we vote on this one? Do we have to? Are we supposed to? No, okay. We stand adjourned.
Has anybody seen that sign
Thank you
in
for your
front of
opinion.
that
Appreciate it.
old building by the trailer park over there across from Carib? That's the dog place. They put a dog